Marching Band's performance of our national anthem.
Last August, it was Racetrack Revival. Well, I think it's safe to say here a couple months later that it is not just a revival, it is thriving with all of these race fans who have lined North Wilkesboro Speedway as we get ready for 125 laps for the Winter World 125 and the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour. And there's two of the drivers who are running up front. They were a fixture last August, and, well, Eric, I think if they have anything to say about that tonight, the win will have to go through one of these two.
The big question in qualifying was, could anybody beat that 8-car? We saw two drivers top it on the speed charts, and your pole winner, Brendan Queen, and Jared Fryer, who slotted into second. Dale Earnhardt Jr., though, in that top 10, as you mentioned. Carson Kvapil going for an unprecedented fourth win in a row in a late model stock car. 37 drivers strong getting set to partake in this action and this activity. It is incredibly remarkable to see how many people have been able to come out to this venue, how many people are tuning in at home. I saw several people across social media mention the fact that they purchased Flow Racing and their subscription because of this race here tonight. I promise you that you are not only going to get your money's worth all year long, but especially here this evening. We're incredibly thrilled to be joining you all wherever you may be watching as we are inching closer to the start of the Window World 125.
We want you to click start and the play button, and guess what? You can just leave that on for the next 4 or 5 hours or so. I mean, we have so much racing here for all of you race fans tonight. So, yes, if you are joining us on Flow Racing, I can assure you that it is not just tonight, it is all year long that will be worth it. But the Winter World 125 for the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour is coming up.
The mountains of North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, have always been known for two things. First, moonshine. Revenuers chase moonshiners to what it's also known for, racing. North Wilkesboro Speedway, a true NASCAR original. But after 1996, it was gone. Mother Nature slowly took over. History buried in weeds, rot, and ruin. Sometimes you just don't realize how great something is until it's gone. Many have fought to bring it back, all with great effort and intention. Then came a weed whacker or 10, and some good old-fashioned elbow grease. It was beautiful to see the track cleaned up again. The old girl was going to live on in the sim racing world, iRacing, but real racing, not a chance. Well, I was wrong. That gesture, that idea, helped North Wilkesboro gain traction. The timing, this time, was right.
Now I get to see the banner to my left, "We Got You Back." It's a really special thing when you can have a big idea that seems kind of crazy and you can actually make it happen.
The miracle came to life. Racing returned. First, the historic modifieds rumbled the hills of Wilkesboro. Then, a late model race for the ages. And the same star that helped in the track's resurrection helped put the sports world on notice. North Wilkesboro Speedway was back.
For the 93rd time and final time.
In 1996, Dave Despain said, "Yes, you can build a team and you can build a track, but you cannot build history. But you can restore it." And 26 years later, they have. The old ribbon of asphalt is still here. Just some new paint, buildings, lights, and most importantly, lots of love. The same gritty pavement that once held Petty, Earnhardt, Allison, Elliott, and Waltrip will now have Larson, Chastain, Hamlin, Harvick, and Elliott on it. But this time Chase. But before NASCAR's All-Stars come to town, A special treat, late model stock cars, a region favorite. Cars that birthed local legends and national stars. Grassroots racing returns to North Wilkesboro Speedway. But this time, she's all dressed up for the occasion. And the Cars Tour is ready for their dance.
You know, someone once told me that nobody cares about the history of our sport, and that the past, it doesn't matter. Man, I am glad they were wrong.
Race fans, here to say the most famous words in motorsports. Please welcome Window World Chairman and CEO Tammy Whitworth and the Window World family.
Yeah. Drivers, start your engines!
Well, the lights are on, the fans are ready to go, the engines are fired up, and we are just a couple of moments away from one of the most anticipated moments of the year, and for many of these drivers, the marquee event on the 2023 calendar. The Window World 125 live from North Wilkesboro Speedway here on Flow Racing. I'm Blake McCandless, that's Eric Brendan, and we'll have Jacqueline Drake down in the pits gathering all of the stories for us and all the anticipation, all the build-up. Eric, it seems like we've been sitting up here for 12 hours waiting for this thing to get going because we are just that amped up to get these late model stock cars rolling along here at this racetrack. These fans have continued to usher their way into this venue, and again, I'm still looking out at some exits over there in the Benny Parsons Grandstand in Turn 2, where I was a spectator. I was a fan there last year, and what a different vantage point it is up here in the booth, but it's nevertheless incredible and going to be one heck of a show.
We know what it's like to wait for this day, this moment, this time. We know what the fans are feeling as the way in which they have packed in here on a Wednesday afternoon after the schedule got a little bit of a shakeup due to the rain out last night. We know what it's like for those of you watching at home who cleared your calendars, canceled dinner reservations to make sure that you were on your couch in time for the start of this race. The question is, what is going through the minds of the 37 drivers? Do they know what they're about to tackle? Do they approach this as just any other race? Or is the ideology that all eyes in the short track and motorsports world appear to be on North Wilkesboro Speedway in Wilkes County tonight? Yes, we had the racetrack revival last August. Yes, that was a magical moment for certain. But as Matthew Donor said in that beautiful piece that we've aired a couple of times already tonight, Our Lady is all dressed up for the big dance tonight. This place is stellar. It's like walking through a time machine. And boy, I think every competitor in the field is ready to take that elevator ride up to victory lane. Only one of them could fit on that lift.
You mentioned how many drivers are ready for what is to come. 18 were here last year in the late model stock car to run this race. So 19 new competitors tonight for this race. And oh man, the LED lights are already starting to flash as they are starting to roll their way off of the grid. It is Justin Marks. It is all hands on deck from this brand new ownership group. Dale Earnhardt Jr., the Sundrop Chevrolet, is in the field. Kevin Harvick, the Hunt Brothers Pizza Ford, is on pit road and just about to get fired off. Justin Marks is driving the pace car here tonight, and Jeff Burton will be our honorary starter as he's sitting up in the flag stand, and I think getting a couple of tips from our good friend Brandon Willard on how to wave the green flag.
As you mentioned, the brand new Musco lighting system that was installed and debuted at the Welcome last week, starting to greet the fans and the drivers as they get set to do battle for 125 laps. First chance we had an opportunity to meet Justin Marks, as you mentioned, part of that ownership group where all 4 key players and factors are here in attendance and playing a significant role in tonight's race. And boy, was he excited. I think he was carrying the same level of anticipation that we all are. And Jeff Burton, we saw him at Southern National. It was like the first day of school, except he still got that grin on his face. Now 4 or 5 races in. I can't wait to see what he's got in store for us here as Justin Marks is parading the field with both of his Trackhouse Cup Series drivers in this race.
Well, again, it is all hands on deck, and well, 3 sets of those hands are grabbing a steering wheel right now. If you're Justin Mark, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Kevin Harvick, as you can see, many of the fans, many of them in green, rising to their feet here on the front straightaway to salute these late model stocks as they'll take a couple of circuits around this racetrack to warm up their tires and get ready to try and save them for as long as possible to make it to the end of 125 laps here tonight.
We mentioned the inclement weather that rolled in, and if you're not from the Carolina area, we have suddenly turned into another sector of Florida, the way in which thunderstorms could pop up and expand once you get past the 1st of May, and that's what we saw last evening. Fortunately, I don't have much wood to knock on inside the broadcast booth, but it looks as though the radar is in fact clear. However, with that, everyone here, from our broadcast team to track officials to competitors, team members, series officials, crunching the schedule about 6 different ways to Sunday, and it's all come to this point here. You see Jeff Burton down there awaiting the go-ahead to drop the green flag on this race. Standing by, our longtime flagger and Brandon Willard, whose father Danny is handling race control duties as race director, as he does each and every Cars Tour event.
You can see the Volt battery caution flag waving as the rest of the field comes on by. Again, the lights flashing. I think it'll be one heck of a show when we get a little bit later on this weekend and it gets a little bit darker to really see them come to life, and many historic cars that are also running around. You can see this modern Dodge Challenger with a little bit of a new nose on the hood. It's been remade into it, pacing the field in front as well, along with Justin Marks, who's driving the pace car. And again, so many storylines in this field. NASCAR Cup Series regulars, NASCAR Cup Series champions, Cars Tour champions, and the best late model stock car drivers, not only in the Southeast, but across this country. And they're going to be led by that driver right there in Brendan Queen, and many of the regulars looking to make their statement against a strong field that includes so many of the accolades that we were just talking about.
We talked about this a little bit earlier on in the broadcast. We understand that some viewers may just be jumping on and joining us here. The drive into the racetrack. North Wilkesboro known for pretty much having just 2 roads that lead in and out of this facility, lined with people, property owners ready to park cars and help race fans get into the facility. Vendors pitch their tents to sell race car memorabilia, items, food, everything that you could have. It's as if I went back to my first race ever at Pocono back on Father's Day in June of 2000, because all of the energy and effort is here. The merchandise trailers for the All-Star race already parked up on the hill, and everyone is just eager to see what tonight does for the future of this facility that is packed with a lot of love, a lot of care, a lot of history, but more importantly, a lot more to come.
Yes, and that is the case. And such a festive atmosphere out there. I know you were mentioning everybody walking around, and I know my first race, it was the 2002 Cup Series All-Star race at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
What a race.
Back then it was Lowe's Motor Speedway. I was a little young, though. I was turning 6 because birthday falls around the middle of May. And actually,
happy early birthday, by the way.
I was about to say, I don't think we'll quite get to midnight by the time the birthday rolls around tomorrow, but nevertheless, we get the 1 to go signal from the flagman and Brandon Willard, and the fans are on their feet on the front straightaway and wrapped around 1 and 2, as well as even some fans that have joined the new Junior Johnson grandstands out there in turn 3. Lights are off on the pace car. It'll be Brendan Butterbean Queen who leads them to the green. Again, he was 2.5 tenths clear of the rest of the field. Jared Fryer to his outside, Carson Quapple and Minnie Tyrell make up your second row. Into the KRC Power Steering Start Zone, the most anticipated event of the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour season is about to get underway. Brendan Queen leads them to the line, and the Window World 125 is green. Good job there, Jeff.
Great job by Jeff Burton, and he's still got the smile on his face. So does Brendan Butterbean Queen, who cements the lead off turn 2. Jared Fryer from the outside front row will slot into second, double wide throughout the rest of the top 10, it seems, and it'll be Queen leading lap 1.
Queen comes around to lead his first lap. Nearly led at Florence Motor Speedway a little bit earlier on in the year, and he'll lead the charge over Jared Fryer. You can see Carson Quapple has slotted his way into the third position as they're almost 2 and nearly 3 wide behind Chad McCumbee, trying to hold off William Sawalich and Cameron Bolin. As you can see, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Daniel Suarez, they're not wasting a whole lot of time. Almost contact between Suarez and Connor Hall.
Suarez's performance in the RNS race cars, number 99, has been quite impressive, but that misstep there getting into turn 1 may cost him a spot here up in the top 10 as Junior had to look down low. They've got a couple of car lengths between that battle and Chad McCumbee in the 16, who is under fire from William Sawalich, while last year's runner-up Mason Diaz in the white 24 is trying to follow that inside lane through.
Battles all over this racetrack. Again, you mentioned Sawalich is able to get by Chad McCumbee. McCumbee may lose another spot here to your runner-up a year ago in Mason Diaz as he's able to make his way on by. Again, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Daniel Suarez tied at the hip here a couple of laps in as McCumbee still reeling there on the top side.
Seems as though once you get kicked up to that second lane, it's like a car getting kicked out of the Talladega draft. McCumbee has not been able to find an avenue down. Next up will be that of Cameron Bolin, who is heartbroken to miss the show at Ace, was lucky to get an owner's provisional in that number 67 car. And the South Carolina native has a familiar name wrenching for him tonight. Josh Williams, NASCAR Xfinity Series driver, put a good setup on that car for qualifying. He was in the top half of the field and looking to get a spot on that number 16 of McCumbee. That's for 14th.
Well, you know, and an interesting story here for Cameron Bolin as he almost slides into Chad McCumbee there off of turn 4 is that today was his last day of school. The school found out that he was racing in this race, so he has to go to school tomorrow after it's let out for the summer. I mean, what a punishment that you have to come run here at North Wilkesboro Speedway, but you know what? I think it's worth it for him.
Yeah, and I bet if he's able to grab that trophy and take it back to Sharon, South Carolina, they may let him go home a little bit early tomorrow for that makeup day for sure. Here's your top 6. Brendan Queen still out in front. Jared Fryer for Jimmy Moore Racing in the 14 runs second, running a partial slate, even though a couple of other drivers have wheeled the 14's owners' points throughout the season to keep them in locked-in contention to make this race. Keep in mind, it was the top 26 in owners' points who didn't have to sweat out falling back on a provisional, while there were a couple of drivers who were given the opportunity to have an owner's provisional, like that car 6 of Brad Keselowski, who's on the outside of Dylan Bassett in the 04. Keselowski gets back down to the bottom in front of Lane Riggs in the 99.
Keselowski able to get down relatively quickly, and Riggs almost tried to make a move on the outside. As you can see, Ryan Millington, he and his family-owned operation, I think has been one of the great stories in the execution that they have had race by race, bringing great race cars, and of course cap that off with second place at a track that he knows as well as anybody else at Ace Speedway. Ran second there. Had not qualified outside the top 5 until this race here tonight. So the 15 obviously bringing that qualifying speed to the racetrack, but has a little bit of work in front of him to try and get back up to the front of the field. As you can see, Connor Zilish and Fogelman close on by, and Jared Fryer taking a peek down to the inside of Brendan Queen here 11 laps into this race, trying to take the top spot from Brendan Butterbean Queen.
Surprised at the lack of separation amongst these front runners here. Not sure if this is the pace that Queen is setting, which the competition is matching, hoping that maybe Brendan is pushing a little bit too hard in the early goings of this event. However, there does not appear to be much separation across the top 7. Just a second and a half from your leader, Brendan Butterbean Queen, back to Connor Hall, who rides in 7th spot in the 77. In between them all, though, is a unique cast of characters as Tate Fogelman has lost the hood on his car on the back straightaway. Caution is out after Fogelman, not sure if he got into the back of another car, but the hood has decided to depart from Tate Fogelman's machine. Heads-up move by the Cars Tour officials to be able to recognize that immediately on the end of the back straightaway after Fogelman was able to welcome the opportunity to get in this race after unfortunately struggling in some of the more heavily populated entry lists that we've had. 2 DNQs so far for Fogelman, who was able to come on out and make a start with us in Southern National, and Florence missed Hickory and Ace in back-to-back races. And this is while battling with Dylan Bassett here. We'll see if that 04 comes across the hood pins. And that's exactly what happens. Oh, Bassett got in the wall.
Yeah, Bassett got a little bit of the outside wall there on the right front, and just enough there to buck the hood. I'm sure that Brendan Queen wishes that that would have happened to him last year, and that's all that it would have had as it flew off, and caution is out. The Volt Battery caution flag is out for the first time here at North Wilkesboro Speedway tonight. You can see that someone will have to go out and retrieve that hood that rests just at the entry of turn number 3 and directly in front of the new sign adorning the Junior Johnson grandstands out there in turn 3. Meanwhile, work being done on pit road. We talked about this driver and how much this racetrack means to him. Growing up just a stone's throw away from this facility, and the hood is up, and they are going to work on the Neon Lager machine.
Have to say, we've been talking about a lot of the content that's been put together in the week leading up to this race. A fantastic, about 36-minute piece on Dylan Wilson and what this venue means to he and his family. And we weren't kidding. When Jacqueline Drake said in driver introductions, you could throw a rock and hit their house, it is that close. In fact, we passed the karting track that they reopened to have a little bit of fun with some of the Cars Tour competitors over the last week and a half. So Dylan's hopes are very high coming into this race. One of the few tracks that he has late model stock car experience in. He did get to race in this event last August. However, there does appear to be some mechanical gremlins that are plaguing him to kick off his Window World 125 in 2023.
Again, Slurpshot, a new sponsor coming on board for this race. We'll see if Wilson can work on that race car. Again, if you're just joining us and perhaps you're not familiar with the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour, again, drivers can come down into the pits. They will not lose a lap. We will not score laps that are under yellow flags. So Wilson will not be penalized as he and his team go to work on that machine. For more on that, let's head downstairs to Jacqueline Drake. Jacqueline?
Down here right beside the number 4 of Dylan Wilson, you can see his entire family, all hands on deck. He's actually battling a power steering issue, which may make for a really long race if they cannot get this under control. They have oil that they're going to apply in there and see if it'll make a difference. But Dylan Wilson, speaking to him a little bit earlier today, he said, I'm envious of the race fans up in the stands because they get to watch the hope that the crew members can get this fixed up and send them back out to the field.
We'll see if he can do just that. Again, it was he had some issues with the motor that was starting to let go and kind of showed signs of that when he tried to qualify at Ace, kind of relegated him to where he wasn't able to make it into the starting field. He was one of 2 of our Touring 12 drivers that did not qualify at Ace Speedway. And when he said no power steering, I know if there's one person who will push through not having power steering at this racetrack, it's going to be Dylan Wilson. He'll be tired tonight, but I think he'd try to battle through it if at all possible, of course.
Boo Carlisle has been putting together some incredible vlogs for the Cars Tour social team and YouTube channel, and he's been posing a couple of questions to several of the competitors. I think if you want to add 2 more to them, who do you want to most have a beer with, and who do you want to most not get into a fight with? Dylan Wilson may top both of those questions posed to the competitors, because that's certainly my choice. And we mentioned the history not only of the venue, but for Dylan Wilson, 4th-generation racer. His great-uncle Charlie Combs was actually part of the construction of this racetrack back in 1947. His great-grandfather, Jack Combs, grandfather Dean Combs, who is a multi-time winner in what was then the NASCAR Dash Series. 60 times he went to victory lane, and 14 of those 60 were here at North Wilkesboro. So obviously, this race and this venue means so much to him. It looks as though he's going to get back out onto the racetrack as we hit the choose V, or the choose mark, on the front straightaway.
And I tell you what, Junior was really close to hitting the square right there. He avoided it, maybe tagged a little bit of the V, which of course is okay. Oh, Cameron Boland, another one. Again, you see these drivers, they're running down the middle, and well, some of them darting at the last second. Suarez went high, Junior ducked down low. We haven't seen a choose cone violation in this series yet, which usually it's an actual cone that sticks out of the ground. We don't usually have the Choose V, but courtesy of the NASCAR Cup Series and Craftsman Truck Series visiting in a couple of days, we were able to have it painted on the racetrack.
Yeah, initially spotters were placed down in turn number 1, so I have to imagine it could be quite difficult to explain to your driver exactly where they're going to be positioned. We understand that some of the spotters may have had the opportunity to relocate based on their visibility to the rest of this 5-mile oval. In fact, it looks as though many of them have repositioned themselves on the backstretch, as you were talking about earlier, Blake.
Well, and again, that was a product of the amount of trailers that we have in the infield. Again, the spotters were up at the top of turn 2, and of course, any spot that you go to, you're going to have, I wouldn't say blind spots, but spots where it is easier to clear your driver and spot exactly where they are, given their position on the racetrack. But however, with all of the trailers that we have here with the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour, again, we have about nearly 90 trailers that have been parked at one end of the racetrack, and that is turns 3 and 4. So there was no visibility for the spotters over to their drivers in turns 3 and 4. I know our good friend Freddie Kraft posted a nice video that said abracadabra, and the car would disappear behind all the trailers there. So they have relocated the spotter stand, which again, a lot of props to everybody at this racetrack for quickly finding a solution. And up at the top in turn 3, I was sitting there watching practice a little bit yesterday, and certainly a vantage point where you can pretty much see everywhere around this racetrack, and the furthest distance away, well, it's going to be the start-finish line.
Caution was prolonged by one additional lap. One more piece of debris was found at the entrance of turn number 3. So the one-to-go signal is going to be delivered this time by Brandon Willard, and we'll get to re-rack the field here with still 113 laps to go. And one last touch on the power steering issue that Dylan Wilson may be facing. At some point, like we mentioned in the Pro Late Model race, you're going to tip over that razor's edge of comfort and stability, and we may start seeing a lot of these cars slide around in the latter stages. So hopefully Dylan's got a chance to not have to muscle his way through that too much.
Let's hope not. As you can see, your top 4 have remained unchanged through the opening laps we've run here at North Wilkesboro Speedway tonight. It is still Brendan Queen leading the field, Jared Fryer to his outside, as we have a little bit longer of a wait into the KRC Power Steering restart zone. 113 laps to go here at North Wilkesboro. It is led by Brendan Queen, and very quickly, Carson Quapple trying to get up into the mix for second. Quapple dominant, looking for 4 consecutive victories to start off this season after a second-place run at Southern National Motorsports Park, and he is clear past Jared Fryer. So already the Junior Motorsports number 8, retrieved by Brian Schaefer, is up there in second. Meanwhile, his teammate and Dale Earnhardt Jr. stuck in a hornet's nest trying to go to the inside of Daniel Suarez. As you can see, parts of the track starting to kick up a little bit there. I think Connor Jones was where it primarily was at.
Mini Tyrell trying to protect that 4th position as he slides up off the bottom as the battle for the lead is on in turn 1. Carson Quapple to the inside of Brendan Queen. Jared Fryer nearly nicked the back bumper of that 8 car as they come off turn 2. And Queen is not ready to relinquish the top spot in 3.
Reminiscent of Florence Motor Speedway, seeing these two duke it out at the front of the field. Queen will get the run off the top, but at the stripe, it is Carson Quapple who led the most laps. In fact, led every lap at a Speedway, who goes to the top of the charts and will once again continue his reign in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour at the front of the field. And Queen, no mercy shown by Jared Fryer as he goes by for second.
Quapple last year led 90 of 125 laps as Queen tries to peek inside of the number 14 of Jared Fryer. He's going to slip off the bottom. A pair of R&S Race Cars teammates in the 44 of Connor Jones, the black car, 4th in your frame. And then Bobby McCarty, who finished top 5 here for Nelson Motorsports last season. Both of these drivers carrying the banner for R&S right now, and they're trying to get 2 of them, each of them, into the top 5.
In a busy couple of days for Connor Jones, was driving and practicing a Super yesterday, has the late model stock race tonight, and is running in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race a little bit later on this week. So you talk about a driver who has his hands full and is getting a lot of experience at this racetrack. Connor Jones is certainly one of them as he finds his way into the top 5. Meanwhile, Mini Tyrell, we saw him using this outside lane last year to try to make up some spots, but he's going to lose that spot to Bobby McCarty.
McCarty takes over that position from Minnie Tyrell. Now here comes the 77 of Connor Hall to try to get down to the inside for what would be 6th, with Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the Sundrop Chevrolet riding there just behind in car 3, currently running in 9th. Now Quapple up off the bottom. Jared Fryer inside with another fight for the lead.
And this is reminiscent of what we saw last year. Quapple was very good here last year, exchanged the race lead with a couple of drivers, and still holds serve over Jared Fryer. Haven't seen anybody run that high in either the Pro Late race or any of the qualifying, any of the practices we've had. And Quapple was way up the racetrack as he fended off Jared Fryer. It works for him. Meanwhile, Dale Earnhardt Jr. starting to march a little bit earlier on than what we saw last year. It was mainly outside the top 10 or just outside the top 10 for the majority of that race last year. Charged his way up to the front to finish 3rd, but right now Junior settling right now for 7th.
And that was even with some damage sustained on one of those late restart stack-ups that we talked about a little bit earlier tonight. The black car that you see there with the Toyota nose entering turn number 3, under fire from the white and green 10 of Caden Honeycutt. That is William Sawalich out of Eden Prairie, Minnesota for Setzer Racing and Development. Sawalich, someone who's already had much success on the ARCA Menard Series in 2023, won the ARCA Menards East Series season opener at Five Flags Speedway, and then made his Craftsman Truck Series debut of all places at Martinsville, driving for Tricon Garage. Came home in the top 10 there as well. This youngster is on the rise in a big way. Hard to believe, though, despite the fact he clicked off many pro late model wins in 2022, still looking for what could be his first late model stock win under the Cars Tour banner. And he's currently running in a very sporty and competitive and talented pack between Daniel Suarez and Caden Honeycutt.
That he is, and Honeycutt running right behind him, finished in the top 10 at Darlington in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series a couple of days ago for Young's Motorsports, so continuing to impress the National Series level is Caden Honeycutt. As you can see, this is Kevin Harvick battling further back in the field. He has control of the 15th position right now, just in front of Ryan Millington, and you see Daniel Suarez leading a line of cars. That is 9th that Suarez has control over, as Earnhardt Jr., who was battling a lot with Suarez here the opening couple of laps, well, that top 7, top 8 starting to pull away.
In that same mix, you see that behind Caden Honeycutt as Sawalich looks inside of Minnie Tyrell in the white 81. You've got in that same picture the number 24 Mason Diaz and the 8 for Top Gun Motorsports of Chase Burrow as Sawalich gets inside of Minnie Tyrell here for the battle for spot as they continue to run side by side for the position here. Burrow, who you see on the top side of your frame there, starting to come into the picture of this 5-car battle. That is the same car that, in fact, flipped at Ace Speedway. He was one of the fastest in the early afternoon practice sessions, and right now running quite well. In fact, just outside the top 10 is that of Burrow, as Connor Hall and Bobby McCarty go door to door. This would be for 5th.
Into the top 5, McCarty on the top side. You can see Dale Earnhardt Jr. trying to join this battle as well. Connor Hall mentioned many a times how they struggled at this racetrack last year, was trying to work out many of the technical gremlins to get that car forward. It has been a big focus for this Chad Bryant Racing effort, and I think they did some good work over the interim as Hall moves up into 5th, and Dale Earnhardt Jr., don't look now, but he is already up to 6th as he moves by Bobby McCarty.
To the approval of several fans in the crowd, cheering on that 3-car to continue to climb his way up the running order, one spot shy of the top 5 as they run, with his teammate Carson Quapple continuing to lead. The field is going to become pretty close to the tail end of the pack here as they are wrapping their way around this venue quite quickly. It is important to keep in mind the fact that we may see a competition caution should we get 40 consecutive green flag laps in. So some of those drivers at the tail end of the pack are going to be itching to pick up the pace so they can stay on the lead lap for as long as possible.
Well, and remember, back at Florence, back at Southern National Motorsports Park, you can see the car that is just in front of Carson Quapple. That is Jacob Hefner, who many a times this season has employed this exact strategy of saving his tires, as the Volt battery caution will wave for the 2nd time tonight. No car spun around, it appears. Perhaps, I think, some debris maybe somewhere out on the racetrack, and maybe from Dylan Wilson, as Wilson has pulled it down yet again onto the pit lane.
I did see
Saw
a trail.
some smoke, yeah.
Yeah, that was last time on the main straightaway. Did see a trail of smoke coming out from underneath Dylan Wilson's 4-car, and you can see that team immediately going back under the hood in order to hopefully at this point, you have to wonder if that car is just burning up power steering fluid at this point, because it has been a tough road to hoe for Wilson, who was hanging on as best as he could. At the time of the yellow, he was 34th, so in that same straightaway and in danger of potentially going a lap down should the race had stayed green.
I think you could see him, he put his head in his hands there for a second as he was sitting on the pit lane, so obviously something going on with that race car. And notice those last couple of laps, you were right, just a trail of smoke was all we saw. Obviously enough that they perhaps want to try and clean up whatever it is that was trailing out of Dylan Wilson's car. Just before we had that caution flag, oh no, they did it.
Yeah.
They did it to it at Ace. Oh, that's the sunset. Well, that's not a full moon night.
Word from Mark Keeler in the production truck was, at first, he was a little bit confused as well as to what that may exactly be. What a beautiful sunset, though, here in Wilkes County as the Musco lighting system is on. We talked about all the improvements that have been made to this facility, and one of the beautiful things, you could see how the buildings were done up. In fact, that building over there in 3 and 4, that wasn't a thing last August at all. It was pretty much just a walkway that had some wooden boards that allowed you to get back there when the track was cold. But even with the paint job, everything that we have seen done, and that incredible lighting system, which is miles away ahead of what we had back here in August, even though that was more than enough, it's incredible to see that it still has this old school feel. Even though there's this new LED technology, the new safer barriers, the new paint in certain spots, the digital scoreboard that, when under normal running conditions, has a traditional rustic look to it. Certainly something that we all have to be able to sit back and enjoy, as this place is going to continue to kind of bleed that historic and rustic feel to it for the many, many duration of its tenure and many years that are still to come here, as we see the field now coming down onto the pit lane. So we will stand by and await additional word here as to what the circumstances behind this may in fact be. You're watching these cars now come to their respective pit area. Now, we have run several laps under caution. We saw at Ace Speedway, or perhaps it was Hickory, Blake, where we ran so many laps under the caution flag that we ended up having a set of circumstances where the teams had to add fuel at a given point. But try to get some confirmation as to what may in fact be taking place here. Is not everybody has immediately come down the pit lane.
I was about to say, I know we have NASCAR coming here in a couple of days, and with all these cars sitting in their pit stalls, somewhat reminiscent of that. But I know just before we went away there and had the caution flag, was talking about a couple of drivers employing, and we've seen it a number of times this year from Jacob Hefner, who was essentially kind of parking the bus in a way during this first run, trying to save as much tires as he possibly could, and has been very successful with it at Southern National Motorsports Park. Drove up through the field and finished up near the top 5 at Florence Motor Speedway. Did the exact same thing, was running all the way in last and was able to drive his way further up into the field and get a respectable finish. And in fact, even back at Hickory, he raced his way up into the top 5. So interesting. Again, that's what I love about these racetracks, is you have so many varying degrees of strategy when it comes to whether you want to save, whether you want the track position, how much you want to push. As, yes, we see all but, I think I'm only counting 6 cars: Lane Riggs, Bassett, Briscoe, Dickens, Pierce, and Hefner. Those are the only cars who are not sitting on the pit lane at the moment.
And I do recall this being a facet of the race that took place here last August, where, even though there was a lot going on, there's a lot of people in the pit area, they want to offer the drivers a chance, if they want to work on their cars, to come down pretty much in bulk and kind of do like what we've seen in some races on the ARCA Menard Series and the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, where they're not necessarily live-action pit stops. They'll bring the cars down, they can make some adjustments. You see no tire changing is going on by any stretch of the imagination. That's part of the beauty of this event for the most part. However, for some of these drivers to have to make adjustments if needed and have that opportunity to do so, and this is going to jumble up the running order a little bit. As you mentioned, there are a handful of cars, a little more than a handful, that have stayed out up to this point. And you can see some of the teams. More importantly, you see several teams putting fans in front of the all-important front tires, right and left front especially, to make sure that they're not overheating at all a little bit while they sit there initially as they come to a stop. And you see Kevin Harvick, one of those who elected to come down for service here on this caution with 95 laps to go.
They continue to pace around here. Again, it is Lane Riggs, the car that is leading the field, and more happening down in the pit lane. Let's get a gauge on it as we toss it down to Jacqueline Drake. Jacqueline?
Down here in the number 3 of Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s pit, and Josh Berry is crew chief for this weekend. Looking over the 3 right now, they added fuel to the back of that, but he also added in rounds to that left rear shock. And I said, what exactly are you doing there? You tighten it up or loosen it up? He said, tightening it up just a hair. Going to give him a little bit better handling as they send him back out on the track. And then his teammate right next to him, the number 8 of Carson Quapple, just added fuel and then cooled off the brakes on that number 8. He, man, I talked to him earlier and he said, I feel the pressure. I have the target on my back this year. I won the race and I know these competitors are going to push even harder. Now with 3 in a row so far this season, the only driver to do that on the Cars Tour. So we'll see just how they got that number 8 ready to go and if he can pull off a 4th win.
Again, I don't remember or recall any time that we've seen these drivers pulling down into the pits, and it's been largely adjustments that these drivers have wanted to make. We haven't seen this. Usually, if you're running at the back half of the field, again, track position has been so hard to come by in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour this season that if you're running up front, well, guess what? You do not want to go to the back and perhaps ruin that. But again, 95 laps to go. Plenty of time to race up through the field, and even Carson Quapple, talking with him a little bit earlier, he was excited about the fact that, well, he has a teammate this weekend. Somebody else that is driving his race cars that he can bounce ideas off of and talk things out with, and he was really happy to have Dale Earnhardt Jr. driving alongside him for Junior Motorsports this weekend.
And I can't help but think if perhaps the cars that did stay out, if this was the game plan all along, hey, we may get an early caution at some point in this race, ride easy, ride smooth. I'm thinking of Brandon Pierce specifically because he was going to be the first car to go a lap down. Take it easy on the early go-around. Let's leapfrog the majority or bulk of the field if they all like to come down and make some of those adjustments, as you mentioned, Blake. And now we're going to get to see what they all have compared to the front runners. We mentioned the top 7 have been really tight up to this point in the race. Some comers, some goers. But now we're going to throw a handful of other drivers into the mix, some of which we haven't talked about much tonight, or in some cases all year. The car that is 4th in line is one of the newcomers to the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour late model stocks. That is Joshua Dickens. Now, Joshua initially hails from Miami, Florida, and he too has had a tough road to hoe as far as just making some of the races that have seen an exponential car count. Did not qualify the last 2 races at Hickory or Ace Speedway, but he and his Mitchell Mott Performance team, representing TinyDreamHomes.com here tonight, they committed to running the entire season. There's an opportunity to come in as an annual entry in the Cars Tour. They did just that. So it provides the chance for the 2022 Young Lions Dirt National winner and former winner at Summer Shootout and Legend Car Rankings a chance to compete here tonight at North Wilkesboro Speedway. He's a driver that's been plagued by bad luck, but nevertheless, he has an opportunity to have a chance to run up front here at a very, very historic venue.
That it is. Again, 95 laps to go as we continue to pace around here under caution as many drivers elect to go down and service to their race cars. And again, I really want to see what we get when we go back green. We talked about Pierce and Jacob Hefner really saving their tires, but with 95 laps to go, again, we saw the dividends that it pays to save your tires. So now that you get the track position, you may have been not exactly expecting it at this point. So if you're part of this LPP group with the number 2 or any of these other drivers that were really saving their tires, do you try to save more? Are you concerned when you start getting passed again, or do you want to get passed again? Do you want to be up at the front of the field? I think those are all questions that will soon be answered as Jacob Hefner came awfully close to hitting that chute. Well, that's because they're not choosing. I think a couple of the cars chose up front and they waved it off.
If I can expand upon the point that you were just making there, Blake, one of the big talking points that we had when we were here last fall is the fact that nobody had a notebook on this place, and nobody really had seen a track that could be this big and abrasive. Obviously, some of the venues we visit have been around for quite some time, and they have that same, North-South Carolina gritty sandpaper surface to them. But the longevity of this racetrack, being 5/8 of a mile, that's a different animal. So, as you mentioned at the start of this race, 18 drivers in that race are running tonight. Well, you could see just about everywhere, including right there on the main straightaway, there's a lot of patchwork that has been done here. And just by polling some of the competitors, they say that could be more abrasive than the actual surface itself. I'm starting to wonder if many of the drivers and teams in this field, they're not quite sure how much tire wear they're going to have to battle their way through here tonight, and they may find out the hard way when they get to the final 25 laps of this race to learn that they may have pushed it too far.
Well, and I think it was different from every driver that you talk to in terms of what the asphalt really does to these race cars. The general consensus was down in 3 and 4, and even you can see it kind of on the entry there that there's a lot of patchwork done on the very bottom of the racetrack. Drivers tonight, that's grip. That's being able to wrap the bottom of the racetrack, and there is grip down there. On 1 and 2, a little bit of a different story, and whether you want to use that to rotate your car or how abrasive it is or not, again, it was a different mindset between each of the drivers as to how they wanted to approach it. And I think you made a good note about having a notebook for this place. One of the drivers that had no notebook at all, well, guess what? He's up front right now in Lane Riggs, and he was quite candid about that and talking about that earlier this week. Stickered Up Podcast with Stephen Dunn, which, of course, you need to be listening to it if you're a fan of the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour. A lot of great interviews with many of these drivers that really take you behind the scenes as to how all of this works. And Riggs was one of those drivers when he was chasing that national championship last year. He was not able to come out and run a lot of Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour races last year. This is 71st start tonight. But, yeah, he said for he and his family-owned race team, they didn't have a notebook approaching this weekend, and that was something that they were going to have to overcome, again, with 18 drivers in this field who ran in this race last August.
And the other item that we should talk about here is the sun does continue to set off in the distance here in Wilkes County, and the lighting system continues to come up to full song. All the practice was done in the heat of the day yesterday, or the one session that they got earlier this afternoon in the heat of the day on what was a beautiful May afternoon here at North Wilkesboro Speedway. This is one of the first opportunities these drivers are going to have to hit this racetrack at night. How does that impact the handling of their race cars? We're about to find out. Let's check in with Jacqueline Drake, who's standing by trackside.
Yeah, guys, I just checked in with the crew of the number 99 of Lane Riggs, who said he really wanted to get track position and clean air. He's actually not that happy about the 99 right now. He thinks it's a little too tight, and his crew's a little concerned because they think it's only going to tighten up as the temperatures continue to cool off here tonight. But the track position is really what they were going after, and they will be leading this field to green on this restart.
That they will, as they continue to run behind the pace car that is piloted by Justin Marks. Says, well, guess what? He doesn't get any time off. Jeff Burton got to hop up there, wave the green flag, did a great job, hops back down, and I'm sure is spectating this race eagerly to see how the rest of it will unfold, as it looks like the lights are out on the pace car, and they are going to be choosing this time. You can see Riggs as well as Chase Briscoe and Josh Dickens electing to take the inside row. Quapple will take the outside, as the rest of the field will try to make some decisions here. And man, what a beautiful shot that is. The sunset in the background. You can see the mountains here in North Wilkesboro. That is a great shot, and full grandstands, of course. That obviously makes it picturesque perfect.
Want to tie up one knot here as we're half a lap away from going green. That caution that we saw, that will be one of 3 controlled cautions we'll see throughout the race, per race director Danny Willard and reporter Matt Weaver. Getting set for the restart.
Getting set as the rest of the field having to catch up with the back of the field and that choose into the KRC Power Steering restart zone. New look up here at the front of the field with Lane Riggs, Ronnie Bassett Jr., and Chase Briscoe got one heck of a restart as Pierce slipped up off the jump. Riggs gets clear to the top spot. Second is Chase Briscoe.
Side-by-side battle continues. Josh Dickens nearly put in a position to be put 3 wide with Jacob Hefner behind him in the white 95. Double wide, about 5 rows deep. Pierce gets a tap from behind. Trouble. William Sawalich. Big crash on the front straightaway. Several cars involved.
Landon Pembleton, Chase Burrows, Daniel Suarez, Brad Keselowski. You can see Ryan Millington has parked it just in front of Landon Huffman. Cameron Bolin, Brian Barnhill able to escape as it was close quarters off of turn number 3. Not the first time that we've seen a lot of carnage off of turn 4. Connor Zilish, that car is destroyed. Deke McCaskill, you can see some damage on the right front of his race car.
Red flag is out immediately as it appears as though Minnie Tyrell is kind of parked on the right front of William Sawalich's car. And there's Chase Burrow, and this is the car that they did, in fact, put back together. It looked as though he nearly got through that crash, and you see him climbing out of the car trying to free up some of the bodywork that is pressed up against the radiator of his Top Gun Motorsports car. Sawalich, the first car to go around. Landon Pembleton, former Valley Star Credit Union 300 winner at Martinsville, has been having a tough go of it so far in 2023 on the late model stock car side with the Cars Tour. And Connor Zilisch, fresh off that podium finish he just had in the Pro Late Model contest, now has a badly wrecked race car up against the inside wall.
You can see Andrew Grady a part of that as well. You mentioned Minnie Tyrell kind of parked on the right front of William Sawalich's car. And again, that was largely caused, I think, not as a result of the restart, but some of the new players that we saw. We saw Carson Quapple was just behind them, I think, trying to make some moves. And I think that topic that we were talking about coming in on whether they wanted to save, I think their mindset was on saving. It caused a little bit of a stack up, and then behind Dale Earnhardt Jr., where Daniel Suarez was running, was where all of that started.
This is something we didn't see last year, a big pileup. We'll have an opportunity to go back, review, and check what happened off of turn number 4, a lap after the restart. We're going to step aside. We'll be back with a full recap of what just took place here at the Late Model Stocks at Wilkesboro.
Back with you live on Flow Racing from North Wilkesboro Speedway. What was initially our third volt battery caution has transitioned to the red flag. There are a number of cars parked here on the front straightaway. You can see Chase Burrows attending to his machine, Minnie Tyrell talking with some of the race officials, along with William Sawalich and Andrew Grady. Let's take a look back, though, at how this happened. We were talking just before we went into commercial break about how it was somewhat of a checkup. And again, I think you're going to want to look at Carson Quapple's machine when it initially starts. And there's the aftermath. Cars piling in. Late in the wreck, you can see Pembleton and Chase Burrow, Brad Keselowski right in the middle of that as well. But this is where that stack up happens. You can see contact with Pierce and Quapple. They check up. So does Fryer, Jones. Earnhardt got a piece of it as well. And Suarez was the first driver amongst many that just didn't get to react to that checkup in time.
Mason Diaz.
Oh, my goodness. The 24, he missed that.
Yeah, he ended up getting all the damage we saw on Connor Zilisch's car came from him running under the fuel cell of Mason Diaz as he slowed to miss the carnage. You see a hard hit there for Andrew Grady into the back of Minnie Tyrell after he got into the wall. And I'm not sure if Landon Huffman in the Nelson Motorsports 22 left of your picture sustained too much damage while coming to a stop to Miss Ryan Millington. This will be another DNF for Landon Pembleton and his team. Had one event where he was not able to qualify. The Valley Star Credit Union 300 winner from Martinsville, Landon Pembleton, is standing by trackside with Jacqueline Drake.
Landon's exit out of his car, retiring for this evening. What did you see from your standpoint?
I've seen guys get in front of me, and it's a little too early to be going at this place. This place has got no grip at all, but it's a little bit too early for people to be going and getting stacked up like that. But we'll come back stronger and be a little bit better.
Landon, your team actually looked like they were going to be able to do work on it and send you back out. Was that a decision from you underneath the helmet, or was it just too much damage?
They looked at it a little bit deeper right there, and it was messed up too much there to go back out, and I didn't want to risk it and either, so it's kind of both.
Number 0, Landon Pembleton, is out this evening.
Pembleton is out, and I love that look that Mason Diaz, holy cow, I cannot believe he drove his way through that accident. Split a couple of cars spinning around, and I was planning on driving a super late model later on tonight. Did not transfer in through the ASA last chance race that was run before we ran single car qualifying for the pro late models and late model stocks, but he earned his keep in that one for sure.
Yeah, I think Diaz is one of the luckiest men to get through that because of, especially considering the fact that he got hit hard enough to put Connor Zilish out of this race, but it wasn't to an angle that sent Diaz into the crash left or right. He was able to continue to hold the wheel straight and get on through. And how about Andrew Grady? I saw Andrew earlier just in passing as he and his Mike Darn Racing team were trying to battle back from the unfortunate event of missing the show at Ace. And, you know, that he is a Touring 12 driver. Unfortunately, he utilized one of the provisionals that's available to him at the race that was held at Hickory Motor Speedway. And what a race he had there. Started last in 32nd, worked his way up to 16th. But as you can see, there are several contenders who have sustained damage in this carnage, including that 3-car of Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Yeah, we didn't catch it initially, but you can see on that replay as the stack-up happened, a little bit of contact with Connor Jones directly in front of him, and see a little bit of damage to the front end of that Sundrop Chevrolet. You can even see right next to him, I believe that was Diaz, the car we mentioned kind of escaping through that. He may have just tagged a piece of it as well as the cleanup continues here on the front straightaway as they continue to haul the Chase Burroughs car away from the scene of the accident, and still a little bit of work to be done. You can see a lot of speedy dry and whatnot, a lot of work done where Andrew Grady's car came to rest. Again, third caution flag that has turned to red of the night. Again, a stack up just behind Brandon Pierce and Carson Quapple, as you can get a decent taste of the running order. Looking at that shot right there, but just so tough for that Top Gun Motorsports group and how hard that they have worked all year long. And you mentioned was on his lid at Ace Speedway, long hours in the shop, went second fastest in practice. And of course, even earlier on this year, you mentioned at Florence Motor Speedway earlier on in the year, blew a motor in practice, drove all the way down from Virginia and changed the motor out in the hotel parking lot before that race at Florence Motor Speedway. So that team certainly working their guts out here this season as you continue to see the work being done to the ABC Hoosiery Ford.
Coming into the night, there were 7 drivers who had completed all 525 laps that have been turned so far in the 4 races in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour late model stock season. One of them, Deke McCaskill, 4th in points, about to be towed off the racetrack. You had a look at the other, Ryan Millington, who was missing the left front fender. It appears as though that streak may be in jeopardy early on in this one. And I want to touch on one more thing. We mentioned the fact that Chase Burrow was on his lid. There's a lot of damage to Ryan Millington's left side there. He's going to go get that looked at in the pit area if at all possible. We did see Chase Burrow and that team have to battle back from getting up on his lid in that crash at Ace. One driver who is not here tonight that was involved in that heavy shunt is that of Ryan Wilson. Now, Ryan did post on his social media outlets that he too was reeling from the effects of a concussion suffered in the crash. And with that in mind, we want to send our best wishes out to Ryan. He's been incredibly friendly for us every time he was at the pit area or every time we run into him. Very complimentary of the opportunity that Blake, you and I get to share. We hope that he's feeling better. Not quite sure if he was able to come on out to the racetrack.
He was. Saw him in the pit yesterday. He and his daughter were walking through, and great to see him out here. His family, they got a camper, and they are here for the week.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, they're here for the Cars Tour, and they'll stay through everything in the NASCAR Cup Series All-Star race on Sunday. So,
well, we're looking forward to seeing Ryan Wilson back in competition. But first up, we want him to heal up and rest up and get back into race-ready form for sure. We are under the red flag after a multi-car stack-up here on lap number 30. After some of the field came down for the first controlled caution, the initial contact was between Carson Quapple and Brandon Pierce. Here comes Mason Diaz slamming on the brakes. Got the back end of that car up in the air as he slides up and into the side of Daniel Suarez to pitch him back up into the wall. And there's some clear damage to the right front of Diaz's car that we didn't get to see on that back end look coming over turns 3 and 4.
But I think all things considered, that's about as good as it could be. You could see Harvick down on the bottom. He's able to miss all that. We'll roll it on back and almost Gee, almost contact with Brad Keselowski there.
How about the wreck avoidance there by Kevin Harvick? Not quite sure how many positions he's been able to gain at this point. And for race fans who are here or watching along on Flow, if you're following along on Race Monitor as well, because that initial caution came out and we did have the running order currently set in a position where it was, well, we did not complete an additional lap under green for the timing and scoring system to be in a position to update itself. So once we do get a lap under green, we'll get the proper running order posted there. Before we continue on, though, let's check down with Jacqueline Drake, who's got some more.
Trackside here with the number 99 of Daniel Suarez. That RNS Race Cars team is waiting currently under the red flag, so you can't work on the car until it either becomes a red, yellow, or a yellow. Marcus Richmond down right here. He has a piece of metal here just to repair that radiator. He has a lot of damage to the nose of that 99, and right behind him you have the number 6 of Brad Keselowski. Limited damage on them, just the fender on the right front there, so they should be able to send him right back out. But for Daniel Suarez, it could be a little bit more of an issue, especially when it comes to the engine and potential opportunity for overheating.
Maybe that for Daniel Suarez, who has a little bit more work later on tonight. He starts on pole for the super late models that are set to roll off after the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour late model stock. So sitting underneath the red flag, work continues on the front straightaway to Andrew Grady's car. And we will be back with more coverage of the Window World 125 on Flow Racing in just a moment. What a beautiful setting tonight is in Wilkes County, North Carolina, as we continue our coverage of the Window World 125 here at North Wilkesboro Speedway for the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour. A beautiful kind of pink setting in the sky for this pink race car. And Eric, we were talking a little bit earlier about Ross Chastain, and we look back at the replays of the wreck. He's nowhere to be found. He was well behind everybody, and I think when we talked about that tire-saving strategy, this car was not running in the back in practice, or it wasn't a car that was really going to struggle. Ross was relatively competitive, but yet has been nowhere in the conversation. I think that is by choice, but yet he's kind of missed everything that we've seen so far earlier on.
That Am Better Health car looks like one of the cleanest that is still out there at this point, even though we're only 30 laps into this race. And we talked about learning curves. And obviously Ross, even though he has a lot of short track experience, especially down south in the Florida area where he grew up, But this has to be a little bit of a new environment. And honestly, hats off to all the competitors who wanted to try their hand at a style of racing of this nature, especially at a track as difficult as North Wilkesboro Speedway. And Ross is someone who has been known to pretty much be attached to excitement in terms of being on a racetrack or being in competition. And we expect that trend to continue as tonight's race goes on and he gets a little bit more comfortable. But I think you hit the nail on the head. The strategy for that Pinnacle Racing Group team may very well be take it easy on the front end of this race and then go hard on the back end.
That is the case, and again, tested this car at Hickory a couple of weeks ago and has mentioned how fun it is and how pure it's been to see families walking around and working on these race cars and how enjoyable that has been. As we will toss it down one more time to Jacqueline Drake.
Cars are starting to get rolling back here on the track, but the number 95 of Jacob Hefner is currently sitting in that P6 spot, who didn't get involved in the wreck. I just spoke to his crew chief, Justin Carroll from Carroll Speed Shop, who said that they didn't come in under the last pit stop, but they're just hoping that they have enough fuel till the end. They said last year it got really close and they almost didn't make it. They're hoping not to see a lot of caution laps here because they're going to thread the needle once again and hope that it pays off.
Thank you, Jacqueline, and perhaps knowing what was coming, a lot of drivers, we saw that last trip down pit road trying to make it on fuel, and here's Jacob Hefner. That may be somewhat close, which I know when we were at Hickory, that was one thing that, well, we had to throw an entire caution for because we had drivers with the amount of carnage that we had there and the amount of laps that we ran under caution that we had to bring everybody down pit road for fuel there in a 175-lap event. North Wilkesboro is one of the larger racetracks that we come to. Again, it's hard to say that when we talk about short track racing, but 5/8 of the mile, one of the larger venues that we come to, 125 laps, and the fact that we have already had a number of yellow flags early on in this race, just 30 laps in. That's a concern for these teams.
Yeah, definitely something they want to keep in mind, of course. And the race director and the series officials have kind of crunched the numbers a little bit, and they'll keep their eyes on that as well should that event or situation unfold. And there have to be a circumstance where we bring everyone down and give them a chance to top off. As the field continues to circulate under the caution flag here, now that the red flag has been rescinded, it's still lane rigs up front. It's important to still identify the fact that at least the top 5, make that top 6, are still on that differing and varying strategy. And I don't believe we're going to see them come down the pit lane, at least not this time, being that the pits are, in fact, in a position where they are closed. But why would you forego that track position here after not completing a lap off the restart? I would imagine this next restart that we could see may trend similar to the last one. I hope not.
Well, I certainly hope not either. And again, the timing and scoring that we have, well, that's not a bug. That's just the fact that we didn't complete a full lap our last time around. Caution laps don't count, so you'll still see that Carson Quapple is scored as your race leader. However, it is Lane Riggs who will once again take the inside on what I believe is the choose cone, although somebody just ran straight over it. It may have been Connor Hall or so that made contact with that box.
We are, in fact, a lap away from the restart. That's going to force several teams and competitors to hurry up off the pit lane. Daniel Suarez still down there being attended to. Some of those crew members trying to get out of the way to see if they can get that car out in time. Brad Keselowski just pulled off. Suarez, they're removing the jack stands. He should make it back out as we're coming to the green.
Yeah, it looks like the GXS Wraps pace car will make its way down to the safety of pit lane. Suarez is going to get rolling and may just get out by the time we work our way into the KRC Power Steering restart zone. 95 laps to go. We'll try it once again. Lane Riggs, Ronnie Bassett Jr., who may have some damage as he is slow or missed a shift somehow. And that allows Chase Briscoe to cleanly get up into the second position. I know we didn't talk about him under that caution, but how about Chase Briscoe running up here in the second spot?
Meanwhile, things are getting busy in the middle of the pack. That's Jared Fryer dooring his way by Brandon Pierce to pick up a position. Now alongside the pole sitter in Brendan Butterbean Queen, while Quapple is the highest running of the cars on the initial strategy that stopped under the controlled caution. That's the 8 car inside of Jacob Hefner in the 95.
I think Pierce is kind of showing that saving strategy. Well, that's kind of what he wanted to do as he continues to fall back. You mentioned the fact that he did not come down pit road. Fuel has to be a concern for him as well. As you can see, Josh Dickens still right in front of Carson Quapple, who was your race leader, as Connor Hall had a bit of a slide there in the middle of 1 and 2.
Chad McCumbee having a look there 3 wide as they exit the frame there in turn number 3 with Butterbean Queen inside of Jacob Hefner, continuing to try to follow the freight train further forward. Hefner slams the door shut on Caden Honeycutt down to turn number 1, while the best side-by-side battle we've got going on is in turn 1 as the caution is out. Yellow flag, volt battery caution, yet another one. This one 3 laps after the initial restart. Seeing anything on the racing surface, which would lead me to believe that after the carnage on the last restart, it's possible that a piece of debris may be out there on the racetrack.
I think that may be the cause as well. You can see Suarez there pulling up to the tail end of the field, and he's going to take the opportunity to come down and service that race car a little bit more, down to the attention of his 99S crew. For RNS Race Cars, Marcus Richmond, and, well, yep, you weren't wrong.
Hats off by our camera crew to be able to identify that immediately. And hopefully that is the only piece of body work that is littered this venue. We may have one more. A couple of souvenirs for fans to take on home with them here once the night is over. I'll never forget walking out of here last August. The initial plan for this racetrack was to dig up this surface, lay it down with dirt, and host a bunch of dirt races in the fall. And after so many competitors seem to be praising the way in which this track races on its current pavement, those plans were put on hold to lead us up to tonight and this week. However, a lot of the fans weren't aware of that on the way out. There were several of them trying to walk away with pieces of the historic pavement before what they thought was going to be a demo day in the coming weeks. So it was interesting to see on the way out. I will fully admit, as statute of limitations still haven't passed, I did not take any of those pieces home with me. But I saw many, and I'm saying nothing.
Lips are sealed as quickly we're going to get the 1-to-go signal. You can see the choose going on, and Harvick and I believe that was Mason Diaz both kind of choosing down low there at the same time. Interesting to see how many drivers are electing to line up on the inside. More not taking the outside than I would have thought as Brendan Queen jumps up into the third row. And with some of the slower traffic, I would have thought that somebody like Quapple, who's obviously very fast, would try to maybe work his way around the number 20 car, but he elects to go to the bottom. And once again, still at the front of the field, you're defending NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Racing Series National Champion from 2022 in Lane Riggs, along with Ronnie Bassett Jr. to his outside. Don't forget about Chase Briscoe, either in third. Into the KRC Power Steering restart zone. 92 laps to go here at North Wilkesboro Speedway, and a great launch there on the inside for Lane Riggs will get us back going. Side by side for second, almost contact between Ronnie Bassett Jr. and Chase Briscoe off of the second corner. They still jockey for position behind them. Brendan Queen, he's dragging the track. Some sparks from the bottom of that 03 car.
It's going to be Bassett able to take second back as Quapple nearly went 3 wide on Josh Dickens, and Brendan Queen thought better of it as he nearly clipped the inside wall going to turn 1. But Queen is still door-to-door with Dickens in a battle inside the top 5.
You know why Carson Quapple's at the end of so many races is because he knows when to push the issue, and backing out there early could have been contentious as, well, Connor Hall wasn't going to back out there on Caden Honeycutt as he makes an aggressive move down to the inside. And those are the type of moves we thought we would see in the pro late model race. With how these cars carry momentum, we would see a lot of, I don't want to call them dive bombs, but just hard charges down to the bottom of turn 1. Seen that here in the late model stocks as Carson Quapple stuck on the outside of Jacob Hefner.
This could be an opportunity, even though Hefner is one of those that stayed out and Quapple is one of those who did not. Honeycutt also behind them, the 77 of Connor Hall. This may be a chance for them to try to shuffle that 8 car further down the running order, possibly for the first time all season. And Connor Hall is trying everything he can to dive to the inside, but Quapple shuts the door.
Looks a little bit like Hickory Motor Speedway a couple of weeks ago between these two drivers as they were side by side, door to door off of turn number 4 there. It was Quapple who hung on and got the second of what is now 3 consecutive wins for that driver. Meanwhile, Caden Honeycutt looking down to the inside of Josh Dickens further on up the road.
There's a battle for position. This is Chad McCumbee in the 16. Brandon Pierce, another one of those that stayed out. And just behind them, Dale Earnhardt Jr., who did not come back down the pit lane. You can see the front nose of that car, specifically the splitter, pushed way up in the air. It'll be interesting to see if perhaps under one of the next controlled cautions, if he'll have a chance to try to beat that back down closer to the racetrack, as here is your pole sitter. In fact, your two front row setters in Brendan Butterbean Queen in the 03, Jared Fryer in the 14, battling for position. This would be to be the car highest running that has already stopped once for adjustments tonight.
It looks like Fryer was more than willing to give up that position, went way high in turns 3 and 4, and gave the bottom there to Brendan Queen. And again, you have to think with the amount of speed that he had in qualifying. I know it was just qualifying, ran a perfect lap, but again, to be 2/10 clear of this field, there's a lot of speed underneath the hood of that 03.
It'll be interesting to see if they ever do repave this place, what that track record will look like, because that 19-1 is certainly going to stand, especially if the pavement remains the same. Connor Jones dipped the left side wheels onto the apron off turn 2, lost some ground. Here's Chad McCumbee lunging down to the inside in his number 16 car. Jones is going to get kicked up high. A little bit of a slide there off the corner by Connor. He's trying to cover the spot. McCumbee nearly shipped him off into turn 1 there, and he gives another warning shot to the backside of Jones.
1 shot, 2 shots. I wonder if he'll get a third as he looks down to the inside in turn 3. Jones will give him the space to operate as they go door to door. Contact made in turns 3 and 4. So it's what these guys talk about when you get back into about 10th or so. This is how difficult it is to race, how hard everybody races back here. McCumbee able to squeeze on by Connor Jones. Now trouble there as Jones tried to cut down. He made contact with Brandon Pierce.
Boy, Connor Jones is getting bounced around. Now he's got Dale Earnhardt Jr. up to the inside. Pierce not quite clear yet in car 2. Jr. committed to the low line and the tire tracks of Brandon Pierce as Jones continues to hold a valiant effort on the top side. Off of turn number 2, Pierce still not quite clear. Jones doing everything possible to put up a fight as the Congo line on the inside continues to form.
Contact there with Brandon Pierce. He's able to get on by. The next one up in line is Dale Earnhardt Jr. They almost touch into turn 1. Mason Diaz is just behind them as well. Kevin Harvick, and there is contact as Jr. slides up the racetrack. More contact. Jones is dooring Jr. down into turn number 3. There's going to be a couple of marks on the side of that Sundrop Chevrolet.
Man, oh man, Connor Jones has made contact with just about every car that has pulled up alongside of him so far, except for Diaz. Now Harvick shoves it to the inside.
Barely enough room there for Harvick to get his nose down there. He'll use part of the apron as Jones aggressively trying to get back down to the bottom, and he finally finds some refuge as he falls back to the 15th or score that 14th position.
In a defense of Connor Jones, we haven't seen that outside lane be really successful at all tonight. And he was doing everything possible to stop the bleeding and not lose too many positions as we flash up towards the battle for third. That's Brendan Queen to the inside, Chase Briscoe outside.
I think Briscoe does exactly. He didn't want to have another Connor Jones situation. He gets down quickly to the bottom of 1 and 2, gives up the spot, and Brendan Queen will set his sights on second place, and Ronnie Bassett Jr. And a great run for Ronnie Bassett. We talked about how well he ran at Florence Motor Speedway, and talking with him a little bit earlier today, he said, you know what, I think a race like this with this surface really puts it in the driver's hands and really brings out the best in drivers who know how to tackle these types of surfaces as he runs in second, and now the Junior Motorsports car is nose to tail.
That's Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 3, trying to get up to and around his teammate Carson Kvapil. As Kvapil now gives up that spot, you see just behind Kevin Harvick and Connor Jones almost touch again. Harvick's going to send Jones off into the corner, shoves him up the racetrack. Millington trying to pounce as well. Connor Jones is going to lose the spot. Will he return the favor in 3?
Back down to the bottom, Connor Jones almost into the back of Harvick as Harvick slides on by, and you know what, this is great to see. These guys are owners in this series. They've been watching all of these races on Flow Racing and how to manage, somebody that you want to see come back and continue to race in this series, but yet when they put the driver's helmet on, I don't think there was any difference in how Harvick or Earnhardt Jr. was going to drive these guys. To them, they're just another racer when they're out there on the racetrack.
And not for nothing, it's going to be cool for Connor Jones to go home tonight or wake up tomorrow morning and realize I was rubbing fenders with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kevin Harvick. He may add Brad Keselowski to the list here as they come off turn 2. Keselowski's team did a great job, and we will add him as another notch on Connor Jones' list as far as competitors he's traded paint with here so far tonight. Keselowski's team did a great job getting that car repaired. Jones now has a teammate behind him in the RNS Race Cars number 6 and Bobby McCarty, who's been trying to work his way back further forward. This is now a battle all the way back in the 17th spot as Keselowski and Jones are still banging together.
Jones still on the top side trying to find a way down, and I'm sure that spotter is yelling at him that he knows another car may be next on the docket. It is Bobby McCarty. Is he going to be able to do the same to Landon Huffman as he runs into the back of Bobby McCarty, cutting down into line, and Landon Huffman not able to get down to the inside, and Jones was working that wheel to get back down. Again, finds himself now in 18th.
I don't know how Jones found a way to get between those two cars at the end of the front stretch without plowing into the back of Bobby McCarty. Here's that race up towards the 3rd spot. Jacob Hefner in the 95 is keeping pace with both Brendan Queen and Chase Briscoe. Remember, Briscoe started hang out back when they came down for the green flag, elected not to stop, leapfrogged most of the contenders that were holding down the fort at the front of the pack in the first 30 laps, and he has not faded all that far. In fact, he's still running in the 4th position.
Well, it's looking like more of a track position game is kind of what at least is playing out before our eyes. We talked about saving tires and where you want to be, and many of our front runners who elected to stay out have still maintained their track position up here at the front of the field. As Briscoe nearly had a charge there at Brendan Queen in turns 1 and 2. Jacob Hefner, another one of those cars, still hanging out here in the top 5. And what a great run for him as we see some aggressive moves down into turn 1 in front of your race leaders. And Ross Chastain, I thought that 3 wide may be a call with Chastain that we make, and he was looking 3 wide on Cameron Bolin and Tyler Ankrum further back in the pack.
At this point in the race, with 58 coming to 59 laps complete, this is the pack of cars with smoke billowing out from Dylan Wilson's machine yet again. There's Ross Chastain in the pink and white 28, Zach Miracle in the 32, Tyler Ankrum in the 98, Cameron Bolin 67, and the number 97 of Jason Kitzmiller with your leader, Lane Riggs, now a half a straightaway behind. It's time for these drivers to go unless they want to risk putting themselves 1 lap off the pace setter.
Chastain going to go to the outside here of Zach Miracle to try to make his way by. I think this is when a lot of those drivers who are really saving those tires, this is when they're going to have to pick up the paces already. You can see Lane Riggs in the rear windshield of Kitzmiller. He is large, and he's going to go around and jump to the top side to try to put that 97 a lap down.
Dylan Wilson's car continuing to smoke out there while continuing to try to log as many laps as possible to make it perhaps until the next caution.
Oh, Bassett has a problem too. He had a little bit of smoke out of his race car.
And this is starting to accordion. The top 3, now top 4 back together as Briscoe looks inside of Butterbean for what will be a fight for 3rd with lap traffic on the bottom. Potentially a pick for Briscoe. He slides up in front of Queen just as they get to turn 1 to take 3rd.
And he takes advantage of that lap car in the 97. And Chase Briscoe came up through dirt. That looked a little bit like a slider into 3 as he's going to look low on Ronnie Bassett Jr. And around the lap car of Cameron Bolin, Chase Briscoe is on the march and looking for 2nd.
Brendan Queen trying to follow him through there as they put a lap on Cameron Bolin. Hefner now rounding out the front 5 and a 5-car freight train at the head of the field. Riggs with about a half a straightaway until the next lap car. It'll be Tyler Ankrum up ahead. Briscoe with a nudge to the backside of Bassett to move him out of the way for 2nd spot.
I think that right front damage you can see starting to rub in on that right front tire. Bassett able to get down in front of Brendan Queen, but Queen will stick his nose in there anyway. Queen up to 3rd. Chase Briscoe, meanwhile, up to 2nd as Lane Riggs is your iRacing halfway lap leader. So we are halfway through this one of the Winter World 125.
Apparently it is go time for Chase Briscoe. He's a half second off of Lane Riggs. While it'll be Carson Brown in the 42, Tyler Ankrum the 98. The next 2 that Riggs will have to get up to and past to continue this torrid pace he has been setting at the front of the pack.
He'll try to get by Brown. He'll set his sights on Tyler Ankrum next, and a little bit further up the road is that number 28 of Ross Chastain. Riggs will look to put a lap down here in a couple of moments, but he's not going to have the opportunity to do so as the caution flag is out, and you continue to see as they slow down that rubbing fender on the right front of Ronnie Bassett Jr.'s machine.
Caution flag waving here on lap number 65 of this race of the Window World 125. And I'll tell you, Blake, looking back at how the race in August played out, I don't recall it being this physical, and I don't recall seeing as much ebb and flow in the running order. It's been quite remarkable to see, one, how much contact we've had tonight, and two, comers and goers are really starting to present themselves here throughout this race. There's some drivers making some moves, and there's some drivers dropping like a rock.
Yeah, I think Chase Briscoe is one of those that we're really looking at right now as somebody who got the track position when he needed, seems to have a lot of tire left behind the wheel of that number 5 Ford. Brendan Queen, obviously a part of it as well. I just wonder, now that we get this last yellow out of the way, who really starts to emerge from a little bit further back? Some of those drivers we haven't seen make their way back up to the front. Caden Honeycutt's the likes of Connor Hall. Carson Quapple running back in 10th. I don't think he had left the top 5 all season long, and yet he runs in the 10th position. Chad McCumbee, Brandon Pierce. We saw Dale Earnhardt Jr. trying to manage some of the damage that he has on the nose of his race car. He currently runs in the 14th position. And I tell you what, Harvick was running some pretty competitive laps as we got towards that caution as well.
Yeah, pretty remarkable to see how much is changing in the complexion of this race. And as you mentioned, we're just a little bit past halfway. Still 60 laps to go here at North Wilkesboro Speedway for the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour late model stocks, where currently Lane Riggs has been out in front of the field. And this may be an opportunity where we see one of those controlled cautions as the pits are open this time through. You see the green flag there stationed on the right side of the inside retaining wall. It looks as though Lane Riggs, Chase Briscoe, they're going to forego the opportunity, but the outside front row starter in Jared Fryer is going to be the first to bite at the opportunity to make some adjustments on his race car.
Well, he's the first one, and he may be one of the only ones. Again, he's giving up the 6th position in a number of cars. Brian Barnhill, you see Carson Quapple, Ryan Millington, Bobby McCarty, and Fogelman nearly hit the cone on the way out to try and avoid coming down to the pits. You see Dylan Wilson make the trip down, as well as they have continued to work on that race car all race long. And I don't think you would want to give up track position unless something was amiss, particularly for Jared Fryer.
Carson Quapple also started to fall through the running order quite quickly. We saw his teammate Dale Earnhardt Jr. get up to and past him, and then Quapple lost a few more positions after that. As you see, the current points leader in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour for the late model stocks, Carson Quapple, came into the night with a 32-point advantage, and it looks as though they're going to take the opportunity to bolt on a set of right side tires on this number 8 car. This is, in fact, a 6-tire race. And it looks as though now appears to be the time that they're going to try to put right sides on that 8 car.
You can see some work with Bryant Barnhill. His race team, again, you can see your top 5 scrolling across your screen as the majority of the field came to a stop here on the front straightaway. They've since continued to roll around here with 60 laps to go. Well, you know, that may help a little bit. Bobby McCarty getting some clean on the windshield, and you know, that's something with this this asphalt and everything that's been kicking up on this old track. That's something that these drivers have talked about, and you know, some of the grill screens have been replaced, and that was a pretty common issue amongst many of these competitors in practice yesterday. With, you know, that's just what happens when you have a track that has this age on it.
A little bit of a sandblasting, never hurt anybody, but it does in fact impair the vision, especially with this incredible lighting system here, which if you could notice on the screen, if you see that pillar there right underneath the 5th and 20th place scores on the right side of your frame, there's uplighting here at the base of the poles to indicate what the status of the race is. When we were under the red flag earlier, they were shining red. Now we're under the caution flag, so they're shining yellow. It is quite remarkable how this Musco lighting system works, and we get to see it unfold here for the first time tonight with the Cars Tour. Let's throw it down to Jacqueline Drake.
Hey guys, I'm trackside right now with Bobby McCarty and Jared Fryer. On Bobby's number 6, they actually changed an entire shock on the left rear of that car. And originally they weren't going to put new tires on, but I looked at Marcus Richmond. I said, tires? He said, yes. And they grabbed the new tires and threw them on the number 6. Additionally, Jared Fryer, who came in, he only got one right rear tire, and they sent him back out. Things are about to get dicey here. I'm ready to see how this irons out.
That it will indeed, as we are past the halfway point. 60 laps to go in the Window World 125 at North Wilkesboro Speedway. The lights are on, the sun is down, but yet the racing is just about to come to a peak, and we will come back in just a moment here on Flow Racing. One of the greatest things about the racetrack revival last August that made it special, and talking to many of these drivers, was standing on the pit lane before the race got started and seeing the droves of fans and creating this special atmosphere. We continue to see it today, and I think we're going to see it all week long. I'm sure many of these fans out here wearing green shirts and many others, I'm sure that this isn't just a one-stop trip for them. I think everything that's coming up in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, the NASCAR Cup Series, heck, even tonight, a little bit later on, you can continue with our coverage of the ASA Stars National Tour. Super late models running a little bit later on tonight. Ralph Shaheen and Jim Trito on the call for that. The fans have shown out in droves, and I think that's only a testament of what we may see a little bit later on in the week.
I have to admit, I feel like we have the best seat in the house, right? Especially when it comes to Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour all season long. But I am getting a little bit envious of some of the fans who, especially as we've been coming back to these restarts, have been all standing up. They're all rising. Some of them shaking their fists. Some of them shaking their beverage. Some of them trying to mimic Brandon Willard in the flag stand. I'm looking forward to how the rest of this race is going to unfold, but I do like the fact that I could go fill one of those many few or scarce amounts of vacant spaces down below us and join this crowd for that ASA race, as you mentioned, that's coming up once Jim Trado and Ralph Shaheen step into the booth and take on over. So it's an incredible and remarkable atmosphere. There's going to be entertainment taking place, leading us all the way up to the All-Star race on Sunday. And it's just an electric atmosphere, and this place has never looked better. I can't believe how bright it is here at night as we hit the chews.
Yeah, that's one thing I know looking at the race last year and watching some of it back, the difference in just the look of this race, and every inch of this racetrack is perfectly lit up. And, you know, that's something obviously with everything that was going on and bringing this racetrack back just wasn't available at that time. But the Musco lighting here and I think even some of the show we'll see a little bit later on when those lights are flashing and just create this remarkable atmosphere. I was looking at some of the shots that they had at the open house that this racetrack hosted a couple of days ago, and my goodness, just the look of this racetrack and some of the drone shots, just absolutely gorgeous what they were able to pull off. So the lights are off on the JXS Wraps pace car, and it is still Lane Riggs, Brendan Butterbean Queen, your top two, Briscoe, Hefner in the second row, Bassett, as well as Caden Honeycutt in row 4. You can see that Sundrop Chevrolet, the outside of row number 5. Into the KRC Power Steering restart zone. 60 laps left as Queen may have jumped the gun a little bit there on the outside. We'll see if the restart is good. Riggs barely has it at the line, but that 03 either got a great jump or maybe was a little bit early.
Looks like Lane Riggs is going to be able to take over the top spot. Look at Briscoe trying to protect the bottom. That's Hefner into the left rear quarter panel of Briscoe's car in the battle for third. Riggs cements the lead. Queen to second. Hefner perhaps going to yield to Briscoe as they go into turn 1.
That they do. Hall into the back of Kevin Harvick, shoves him up the racetrack as they are stacked up. And how about Daniel Suarez? How is he a part of the picture with all the damage he has on that race car? Hall and Harvick collect each other off of turn 2. They're still beating doors, and Hall is sideways as McCumbee almost makes it 3 wide into turn 1.
Hall and Harvick are not done yet. These are two brass knuckle racers who continue to slam doors off of the corner. McCumbee looks inside, 3 wide.
Hall squeezed in the middle. Harvick is back up the racetrack. It works out for McCumbee. Huffman checks up. Keselowski goes to the bottom of him. And now Harvick will try to get back in line. Suarez is back inside of Harvick. And meanwhile, for the race lead, here comes Brendan Queen. We can't keep up with all of it.
We got the double box going. There's fights all over the racetrack here as Brendan Queen, the pole sitter, is to the inside of Lane Riggs to try to take over the race lead, and he will make the pass off turn 4. Briscoe trying to follow on the left-hand side of your picture.
The water is boiling out of the pot right now in North Wilkesboro Speedway, right-hand side of your screen. Harvick falling back. He'll lose a spot to Mason Diaz as Queen pulls out by a couple of car lengths. Riggs is hanging on the top side, but Chase Briscoe looks to have plenty of race car left. He goes to second. And how about Caden Honeycutt up to 4th potentially?
Honeycutt, someone who is not quite sure what the rest of his late model stock car slate may look like. But nevertheless, every time he is strapped into this Mike Dorn Racing number 10 car, the Alito, Texas native has been able to make some noise. He comes into the night 8th in points despite not running all the races. And he has had a couple of podiums already, and he moves himself into a podium spot for the moment in 3rd.
Riggs follows on back. Meanwhile, further behind this battle, you can see Ronnie Bassett Jr. hanging on over Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Chad McCumbee, who has really pulled away from Connor Hall. Suarez goes to the inside of that number 77, but how much is left in the tank for these drivers in terms of their tires? If they can continue to run him down, we mentioned some of the right front damage that Bassett had a little bit earlier. He falls back into the clutches, the driver in the NASCAR Hall of Famer out of Mooresville, North Carolina.
The performance by Bassett to be able to maintain pace after slamming the wall in turn number 2 early on after coming across the bow of Tate Fogelman. It's been very impressive, and this is a race that he told us earlier he was really looking forward to as Connor Hall is in yet another spirited battle, this time with his teammate in Mason Diaz, with Harvick trying to fill the void.
We might get Connor Hall, Kevin Harvick part 2. Would love to see that. Is Dale Earnhardt Jr. going to give way to Chad McCumbee? And McCumbee, the Cars Tour veteran, puts a hand out the window, says thank you very much as he makes his way by Dale Earnhardt Jr. That's for the 7th spot.
Well, the racing continues throughout the pack. Quick check on timing and scoring on some of the cars that took tires. Jared Fryer still 23rd. Carson Quapple back in 26th. And also, there was the number 6 of Bobby McCarty that came down to put on fresh rubbers. Well, he runs 27, so perhaps they're saving the fresh right sides they just bolted on, awaiting for the rest of the field to come down and put on fresh rubber as Suarez is in the back of Junior.
I tell you what, Daniel Suarez, I cannot believe the amount of work that they have done to this race car to make it competitive as he works right on by Dale Earnhardt Jr. Suarez up to 8th and is one of the fastest cars on the racetrack at the moment, trailing only your race leader in Brendan Queen. And you know what? We got to give a nod to Chase Briscoe as well. Was running up in second, and honestly, looking at the performance of that number 5 car in practices the last couple of days, I would have never imagined that it would be running in the top 15, let alone up here in second position. So Chase Briscoe proving all the doubters wrong in this late model stock car, and he has been on a mission, got his track position, and he has kept it.
Been a good night for Chad Bryant Racing all the way around. You talked about Briscoe in second, Diaz in 10th. One car going the opposite direction right now is that of Connor Hall, who got a love tap from Brandon Pierce the last time they went off in the turn number 1. Hall is now running in the 12th position in that 77 in front of Pierce in the 2. And then it's Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski. The 4 cars in a freight train battle for 12th on back here at the moment with still 47 laps to go.
I think one of the biggest surprises, I was just looking down at the leaderboard and saw Quapple in front of the race leaders because he may get lapped in a couple of laps. And Brendan Queen continuing to chase down the rest of the field. But something going amiss, certainly for Carson Quapple. Barbie McCarty running back in 26th and 27th. And I think our race leaders at this current pace, they put those cars a lap down by the time this thing wraps up.
Part of me wonders if their strategy is to try to hold back or yield just a little bit, being that they already put on their 2 fresh sets of tires. I'm sure that if Brendan Butterbean Queen gets up there fast enough, they're going to have to run at a faster pace than what they're looking for. But for right now, it's been clean and green. And right now, Butterbean is on the same straightaway as the 2 that we were just talking about with that fresh rubber, while this fight for 4th intensifies. This is Lane Riggs and Jacob Hefner, 99 and 95 respectively.
Queen is off into his own stratosphere at the moment. Lane Riggs hanging on to 4th, a couple of car lengths ahead of Jacob Hefner as we get towards the last third of this race. Back behind Dale Earnhardt Jr., Zach Miracle starting to surge at the right time. You remember his drive through the field last August and how impressive it was. Up 20 spots, started 27th and finished up in the 7th position last year. He's up to 10th so far, and Zach Miracle really charging at the end of this race, has plenty of tire. And that number 32, Miracle Dental Center Chevrolet.
Here's a couple of cars that have been able to navigate their way through some skirmishes of their own throughout the portion of this race. However, I believe they are running a little bit off of the pace in comparison to the leaders. It's Jason Kitzmiller, who is 2 laps off the pace. Connor Jones in the number 44 is in this tussle right in the middle of Tyler Ankrum in the number 98. That is the battle for 16th that Ankrum currently holds down, the frequent competitor in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, trying his hand in a late model stock car here for AK Performance. As a matter of fact, this is his 11th career Cars late model stock start, but the first since the series inception back in 2015. Good to have Tyler Ankrum back in competition. He's running just outside the top 15.
It's good to have a lot of drivers who have been with us for a long time. Of course, Lane Riggs and Deke McCaskill being those 2 that have made the most starts in Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour history. Riggs of that running up in the 4th position. There's a couple of cars duking it out. Ronnie Bassett Jr. and Chad McCumbee for position a little further on up the road. But you can see Brendan Queen still smoke trailing out of the back of Dylan Wilson. But, I mean, you can look in front of Brendan Queen. You can see some of the lap traffic that they're approaching. And Dylan Wilson, Bobby McCarty. Again, like I mentioned earlier, cannot believe that Carson Quapple, your race winner last year, and defending race winner of the last 3 Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour late model stock races, and you're defending champion in a predicament right now.
You have to wonder how much of this conservation effort is going to be able to withstand as we see another fight for position starting to take shape here up inside the top 10. Dale Earnhardt Jr. doing everything he can to move further up the running order as things run, with laps continuing to click off here at the North Wilkesboro Speedway. That's Brandon Pierce just up the road. As one car going way wide is that of the 5 of Bryant Barnhill, was ecstatic to be part of the field. And Blake, he had a pretty interesting week.
Yes, he did. He arrived at 3 a.m. for practice yesterday, worked a double shift at his at the ranch that he obviously works for and sponsors that race car. Unfortunately, had to take one of his friends to the emergency room, the reason that he was arriving so late yesterday morning. Now, of course, for him, happy to report that his friend Sandy McDougal is okay, and of course wanted to be here at this racetrack so bad. So, Sandy, if you're watching out there on Flow Racing, of course, we wish you the best, and we're glad to hear that everything is okay. But Bryant definitely a jack of all trades and coming out and doing things here tonight. As you can see, Carson Quapple, Landon Huffman, this is just in front of your race leaders, along with Ross Chastain.
Carson Brown in the 42, one of the rookies in the late model stock side of things, going a lap off the leaders. And Dylan Wilson's rough night continues. You see the smoke starting to appear once again as the caution flag will wave. This may very well be the last competition or controlled caution of the night. 35 laps to go. This would be splitting the race pretty much up into some form of thirds, right around the ballpark, as a matter of fact. Remember, we had that caution at lap 30 that turned into the controlled caution. We moved ahead to lap number 65, and now here we are with 35 laps to go. So at this point, Blake, if you purchased a set of right-side Hoosier tires, you got to use it or lose it at this point, and I would expect to see the small handful of cars, your Jared Fryer, your Carson Quapple, your Bobby McCarty, they're going to stay out this time through, and it's going to shape up for a barn burner of a restart with 35 to go.
It may do just that, but I just have to think the track position, we've seen it be so important tonight. Just 35 laps to go. I know you can save a heck of a lot of tire, and you can do a lot with it in 35 laps, but is it enough to drive through a field that is this close, that is this competitive, and has been so tough to pass all season long, at least driving from the front to the back of the field? We've really only seen it a couple of times. There are still 30 cars out on the racetrack right now as well. 7 drivers electing, or not electing to. They were put behind the wall a little bit earlier in Williams Wallace, Minnie Tyrell, Chase Burrow, Landon Pimpleton, Deke McCaskill, Connor Zilish, and Andrew Grady, all involved in the same accident on lap 31 of this race. But yes, caution flag, the volt battery caution out yet again. And this is what I love about this type of racing, Eric. The strategy is just all over the place, and you never know what is up these drivers' sleeves. But I think one that we really have to look at in this top 3, and just always seems to be in the right place at the right time in a lot of these Cars Tour races, and that is Caden Honeycutt, one of the fastest cars on the racetrack these last handful of laps. I think that number 10 car in the right place at the right time.
And I know we touched on the fact that he is in the top 10 of the championship points. In fact, 8, despite having to miss a race due to commitments in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, where he made the absolute most of his opportunity to run for Roper Racing at the Bristol Dirt Series. Now the question is, what more can Honeycutt do to try to impress the masses? And he's in line right now as things run for what would be his 3rd podium finish in what is only his 4th start of the season for Mike Darn Racing. As you can see, the pits are open here. Honeycutt is going to be part of pretty much the whole field who is going to elect to take part in the opportunity to come down to pit. The few cars that are in the back end of the pit area, or I should say on the back end of the surface, that we thought may stay out, it is the 14 of Jared Fryer, the 8 of Carson Quapple, the 6 of Bobby McCarty. They have all elected to forego the pit lane while the rest of the field comes down for service, and more importantly, perhaps, the 2 fresh right side tires.
All right, so is track position and being up front going to be better than having about 30 lap fresher tires? That is the question for these drivers, and whether they can hang on to it or not. That's a tough question to try and ask.
See the teams on standby awaiting for the work whistle to blow to give them the green light to start to do the work that is required on the control caution. You see everybody has fresh Hoosiers in hand, and they're getting set to jump off the wall.
Somebody was working a little early, I think, on Josh Dickens' car, was about to get a talking to from the official, and, well, then everybody went.
See Chase Briscoe just in your frame. Chase Briscoe, Mason Diaz, Connor Hall, all getting fresh rubber. Behind them on the far side of your picture, you see Ross Chastain also getting fresh tires. Pretty much, if you're on the pit lane now and you weren't one of the 3 that we documented as being the ones who put on the fresh Hoosiers the last time in, you're bolting them on now for this 35-lap run to the finish.
How about Brendan Queen? Been so strong all evening long, and everybody mostly electing to take right side tires, but I think for Queen, I think he was jacked up on the left side, is I believe what I just saw.
Looks like they may have been trying to get an adjustment made on the left side of Queen's car before going ahead and bolting on the right side tires, as I did see at least one of them still sitting on the pit wall. Dale Earnhardt Jr. taking the opportunity to get fresh rubber on that car. Let's hear more about your current leader, Brendan Queen. Jacqueline Drake is standing by with more.
Yeah, guys, you were talking about that left side. They actually took the tires and swapped them around. Now the crew's going to go around and add in those new right side tires, but clearly just going to move the tires around just a little bit. And Brennan Butterbean Queen really took off there in the last segment. So I'm curious to see just how it irons out at the end here and if he can continue that momentum.
He took off in that segment. He took off in qualifying. That's for sure. So you continue to see the work being done to his race car as we get down to the nitty-gritty here. We're going to stack this field up once again, and I think if what you saw earlier in the race, I think there's potential that something like that could happen again. We had differing strategies, cars that stayed out that perhaps may not have had the pace a little bit earlier on, and yet we have 3 cars and very talented drivers, 3 defending champions of this series, and Jared Fryer, Carson Quapple, and Bobby McCarty staying out under this caution, so capable as any. But I have to imagine even implementing this strategy to park the bus for about 30 or some odd laps, run out that last caution. Wonder if the track position's worth it. Again, this is why I love being up here in the booth and not down there wearing a headset.
It's also a lot to ask of your competitor to be able to go out there on fresh rubber but drive as soft as you can, as if you've got an egg underneath the throttle, to put yourself in a position to leapfrog a bunch of the contenders and then hope that you're on some sort of a level playing field when they just bolted on fresh tires themselves, about 30 or so laps later. The question is, who's going to perfect that art? The one thing I will point out, though, is the 3 drivers that we mentioned who put on fresh rubber a little bit earlier on than the majority of the field, they're either veterans of the sport or they are the best at their business right now. Now, Carson Quapple, our reigning champion, current points leader, 3 wins in a row, going for a 4th, going for back-to-back here at North Wilkesboro. You would imagine that there's a lot of trust that Carson could deliver in terms of being able to meet and complete the task at hand. The other 2 drivers, Bobby McCarty, multi-time late model stock champion in the Cars Tour ranks, and of course Jared Fryer. Even though he is running a part-time season, he too has a late model stock championship under his belt back in 2020. I would say that these are 3 competitors specifically. There's a couple of more that may have stayed out as well, who have put themselves in position to bounce ahead of everybody else. Do they have enough underneath them to make it to the finish with a hungry pack that will be just behind them?
Well, and I'll take a look and make sure timing and scoring is A-OK. Again, I imagine that some of those drivers up front may have gone a lap down a little bit earlier on in the running, but I don't think that may be the case. So those 3 drivers we were talking about staying out, we may have to add 3 more in Tyler Ankrum, Ryan Millington, and Kitzmiller there in the 97, who may have employed this same strategy, so not 3, but 6 cars up at the front. Actually, Kitzmiller scored a lap down, so he will pull over and let the rest of the field on by. So it looks like it's 5 drivers that stayed out and will start at the front of the field.
While the running order is sorted out, let's check in with Jacqueline Drake once more, who's got a report down from the pits.
One of the drivers that elected to stay out, which you just spoke a little bit about, that number 98 at Tyler Ankrum, which we haven't seen him in the cars since 2017. It's been about 6 years. Speaking to him earlier, he said, I'm just trying to knock the rust off, and he's looking forward to competing here later this week with the truck series. We're going to find if he can hold on there and add a North Wilkesboro late model stock win to his name.
And that's just not adding a win. That's going to victory lane at North Wilkesboro. I know when we were talking to Brendan Queen a little bit earlier in his Hedgecock Racing Pole Award interview, he said, I'm a pole sitter at North Wilkesboro. I mean, how cool is that? And to not only call yourself a pole sitter, again, he said he wanted to lead lap 125 more than any tonight. But even just to say that and go to victory lane here would mean so much to him. Or, of course, Tyler Ankrum. It's not just a win to win here at North Wilkesboro, something that will stay with you for the rest of your life, being able to ride the elevator at this racetrack.
You saw briefly there on the right-hand side of your screen, the hard luck and hard night for hometown hero Dylan Wilson continues on. They're still attending to that car I'm not sure if they have been adding power steering fluid throughout the duration of this race. It seems as though he could run about 20 laps or so until it starts burning off whatever assistance he has with the power steering issue that was reported to us earlier. We touched on this in the pre-race coverage that we had, but Dylan, along with Brandon Pierce, have a podcast they put together called You'll Have That in Big Time Auto Racing, and I'm sure that he will provide a detailed explanation on what may have been a very frustrating night at a venue that he calls home. But I'm curious if it still has been quite the bittersweet night in terms of the frustrations on the racetrack, but seeing the success that's coming around it.
They do a really good job of recapping both of their weekends, as well as kind of reviewing some of the venues that we go to and anything that's interesting, concessions, the nightlife that's around a lot of these facilities, everything that goes on. They're very in tune with that, so can't recommend that podcast enough, as we have gotten the one-to-go signal on the choose, and occasionally we've had 2 laps after the choose, and we've had 1 to green, and we've sent them, and I think they've begun to slow the pace car off of turn 2 to allow the rest of the field to choose and everybody to catch back up to the tail end of the field without having to make another lap. And you know what? Good on the pace car driver using his turn signal to get down to pit lane safely, as Tyler Ankrum and Ryan Millington will lead the field back to green. Differing strategies. We'll see what will work out. 35 laps to go here at North Wilkesboro. And Millington rockets all the way to the top side, higher than we've seen just about all night, as Ankrum is loose. They're going to be 3 wide for second as Jared Fryer makes his presence felt.
Millington, whose car is beaten and battered on the left side of that race car. Now the reigning champion, Quapple, pinned up to the top side of the racetrack. He squeezes down in front of Ankrum, who gets tagged and is sideways. What a save by Tyler Ankrum.
And Chase Briscoe said, "I'm not waiting for you any longer, bud," as now Daniel Suarez going to try to make his move on Tyler Ankrum as he is loose and up the racetrack. Junior has to check up for it as well. Millington leads, Fryer close in tow, and here comes Carson Quapple as well, as they are 3 wide once again as Ankrum moves up the hill.
That time it was Suarez who shoved Ankrum aside. Now Dale Jr. to the middle, almost gets pounded in the right side door, trying to keep Ankrum in the third groove. That's not going to work here at Wilkesboro. Harvick to the middle behind him.
Harvick trying to cut down on Keselowski into turn 1, and they nearly come to blows. Oh, man, that is close right there as Ankrum continues to free fall through the field. Meanwhile, back up front, Millington holding on fresh tires, or old tires, rather. Fryer has that second strategy where he stayed out, but Brendan Queen off the pit road, side by side with Carson Quapple, he takes third.
Brendan Queen is coming. That car is dialed in and hooked up, and he's got 2 more cars to pass as the blocking, ducking, and diving continues on the back straightaway, with Keselowski nearly getting into the backside of Harvick into turn 3. Here comes Butterbean for second spot and nearly into the back of Fryer.
And this allows Millington to escape and Quapple to perhaps take another shot at Brendan Queen. They'll go side by side down into turn number 3. Queen is on the move, and don't forget about Caden Honeycutt as well. He has some fresher tires as well.
Fryer back to third. Queen may have given him a little bit of a nerf to try to make that pass, but Fryer does not return the favor. Quapple on the bottom. Catch it. Oh, trouble. Jacob Hefner is backed into the wall. And for the second race in a row, it's heartbreak for the Carroll Speed Shot 95. Hefner, who was running up front earlier in this race, has a badly damaged car, especially to the rear clip of his Carroll Speed Shot machine. At Ace Speedway, it was a ball of fire. And here tonight, it is a grinding halt as he climbs out of the car okay. And you have to wonder, the driver who is second in points, just 2 races back, has a bit of a black cloud over him here tonight. In fact, in his car's tour tenure over these last 2 races, and he appears to be a bit displeasured.
Oh, yeah, he's upset.
The traditional use your head mentality towards Mason Diaz with the toss of the heat guards, with Dale Jr. casually moving aside, with the heat shields sitting on the bottom of the racetrack in turn 1. I'll tell you, Jacob Hefner is a very calm, cool, and collected young man. You don't see him get hot all that often. Here's why.
Down into turn 1, you could see, I think Diaz a little bit up the racetrack, and boy, that is a tough, hard hit for Jacob Hefner. It's hard to tell exactly there where Diaz was running. You can see the left front wheel locked up a little bit for Mason Diaz. And for Jacob Hefner, it hasn't been a lack of speed. Was one of just 3 drivers that had finished in the top 10 of every single race as we were 3 races in. And unfortunately just not had the luck these last 2 races. At Ace Speedway, you mentioned the ball of flame that he was up in while he was running in the top 10. And was doing the same here as he shows his displeasure with Mason Diaz, who again runnered up in this race last August with 29 laps to go, and I believe, 7th Bolt battery caution flag, I think, of the night is my count.
Yeah, I think I've run out of room on the paper in order to tally up these caution flags. I will tell you, though, first off, hats off to our turn 3 camera operator who was fixed on that battle for position as it looked as though things were going to go awry, and we caught that footage. So as a matter of fact, that's Dan Love over there in turn number 3. Was just talking to his father, Doc Love, just a little while ago. But I did notice on that look of the replay that we had, the other Chad Bryant car in Connor Hall was peeking down to the bottom. I'm curious if Mason was trying to give his teammate some room on the inside. They may not have been exactly 3 wide, but perhaps the attempt to try to leave an avenue for Connor Hall to get through on the bottom without contact came at the disposal of the number 95 car, who was not in that 3rd lane until he got put up there.
That's a great point. As we have a number of teams, a number of teammates bringing cars out here. How about, I know this is back in the Pro Late Model field, but how about Wilson Motorsports? Between all of the activities going on at this racetrack over the next couple of days, they brought 7 race cars out here. That is just simply incredible.
Absolutely remarkable. And speaking of Wilson, from our vantage point, we could see that poor Dylan Wilson is back on the racetrack. Boy, if they didn't come with a couple of cartons of Neon Lager, I'm not necessarily sure how they're going to have the opportunity to have a chance to be able to rest once this race comes to a close. As you see, the number 95 car being towed off the racing surface here, with the cleanup continuing down in turn number 1. Had a chance to catch up with Jacob Hefner back at Hickory Motor Speedway, touch base again at Ace. He was able to display an ability, or a talent, if you will, to be able to conserve his equipment early in the going and then rocket his way up to the strong finishes and results that put him in 2nd in the championship standings going into Ace, where the power plant came undone in a very spectacular way. That result dropped him from 2nd in the championship standings all the way back into what would be coming into tonight's race for that of Jacob Hefner. It kicked him so far down the running order, I can't even find him on my papers. 7th was that of Hefner. And with that, even after this incident now, we can expect that perhaps he may fall a little bit further behind there after that contact. But I'm pretty sure that perhaps we'll have an opportunity at some point to go back and review a little bit further. But it did look like perhaps Connor Hall was peeking down to the bottom of the racetrack, and Mason may have been trying to leave him enough running room.
That may have been the case as we continue to pace around the Window World 125, and Ryan Millington putting this clean track position up to good use. But I tell you what, Brendan Queen has the opportunity to restart. More than likely, I would guess, Millington, if you're likely Millington, you'll take the bottom here on this restart. If you're Brendan Queen, you'll take the outside, and I think there's a good chance with those fresh tires and how fast that race car has been. If Queen can just hold Millington at bay off of turn 2, I think he's pretty clear for the race lead, as we'll take one more look at it there.
I stand corrected. I'd say that 77 was too far behind the 24 for him to think about him peeking there down on the inside. I mean, there's about a car length of separation there between Diaz and Connor Hall, so I tried. I tried to give the 24 a little bit of benefit of the doubt there, which we saw Jacob Hefner rightfully did not. But nevertheless, hard racing. A lot of these drivers are on a razor's edge, and that contact is what puts Hefner hard into the wall and out of this race.
Now, race officials do have at their discretion the ability to put a driver at the tail end of the field if they were to blatantly cause an accident. Ryan Millington was put at the back of Hickory Motor Speedway a little bit earlier on in the year, so we'll see if Diaz had the same fate or not. It appears not. He's up front here with this choose. Or no, I stand corrected. He's just in front of Brian Barnhill. That was the wrong car. So yes, Mason Diaz put at the tail end of the field.
Yeah, and after looking at the replay that other time, it appears as though that is the right call. And it's full disclosure, I love Mason. I love everything he's about. I think he's got a boatload of talent. It hasn't been the starts of the season he's been hoping for, but a mistake was made there. Unfortunate for Hefner, unfortunate for Mason. It'll be fun to watch here with 29 to go.
That it will, and as we were talking about earlier, it's how that played out here with the choose cone. Millington on the bottom, Brendan Queen on the top into the KRC Power Steering restart zone. 29 laps to go here at North Wilkesboro for all the marbles. Green flag is out. Early dive for Caden Honeycutt. He looked to make it 3 wide for second. He backs out. He thinks better of it, but Brendan Queen on the outside of Millington charging for the race lead, and he'll have it down into turn 3. Quappo gets shoved up the racetrack by Jared Fryer.
I think Fryer may have been trying to set up for the entry of turn number 3. Had to dart up a little bit. That's going to cost Quapple perhaps 1, 2, maybe 3 spots as everybody tries to dive for the bottom. Honeycutt in the 10. Quapple in the 8. Side by side for 4th with Lane Riggs waiting in the wings.
Again, Quapple stayed out on this latest caution, so trying to hang on slightly older tires than the rest of the field. Honeycutt able to get by. Riggs may be next. Bobby McCarty still trying to hold his track position as well on those older tires further on back.
Making some moves just behind this battle. That blue number 16, Chad McCumbee, has made up another spot. Here's the side-by-side fight between Chase Briscoe and the 5, the 77 of Connor Hall. And here's Dale Earnhardt Jr. kicked, kind of trapped up to that top lane. Brad Keselowski looking down to the inside. Ross Chastain is in the mix as well as Brandon Pierce gets sideways off of 4, giving Jr. a fighting chance in that second groove.
I told you, Ross Chastain was just kind of taking it easy all night, and yet here he finds himself back up towards the top 15. I don't know how much time he has left to make up some spots, but yet here he is trying to battle alongside with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Brad Keselowski right in front of him.
Keselowski and team have been on a bit of a comeback trail of their own. Remember, they got caught up in the big crash on the restart right after we got back underway on lap 30. He's done a great job of rallying back in terms of getting that car repaired. And there's Diaz, fresh off the penalty for being sent to the rear of the field, inside and past Carson Brown, continuing to charge forward.
Connor Hall looking into the inside of Ronnie Bassett Jr., and they touch. Bassett saves it, doesn't get the car too far out of shape here with 24 laps to go. Chad McCumbee, another driver who has really had a great long-run car all weekend long. Or, well, I say weekend, it's Wednesday night.
Yeah, right.
Not exactly a weekend, but 23 laps to go, and McCumbee all into the trunk lid of Bobby McCarty.
Hard to believe that the fights for position continue to be quite physical everywhere you look. We saw that little bit of traded paint between those two drivers. Here's Chad McCumbee all over McCarty, as you mentioned. All the while, Brendan Queen is trying to break out further forward, and just like that, we're double wide for 2 rows deep. Connor Hall trying to slide up and past Ronnie Bassett Jr., while McCumbee in the 16 is alongside of McCarty in the 6.
And meanwhile, Chase Briscoe, who was so strong earlier on, he's just at the right-hand side of your shot. He's falling back, and it seems that car is not handling to his liking anymore. Kevin Harvick pulls up behind him, but this battle to try to get up into 6th is still raging on between these two veterans in McCarty and McCumbee.
Car on the move the last few laps has been that 77 of Connor Hall. That Chad Bryant Racing team, as we mentioned, comes into the night tied, unfortunately, with the driver leading this race in Brendan Butterbean Queen. Hall trying to waste no time to pick up some more positions. He got by McCarty and is going to work on McCumbee for what would be 7th.
Another late charger trying to make his way by. That is Ronnie Bassett Jr. on the top side and Zach Miracle, as well as Kevin Harvick. I tell you what, that 62 car has been awfully fast this later part of the run as well. So he tries to pull up alongside his Stewart-Haas Racing teammate, Chase Briscoe.
Yeah, pretty ironic that in this capacity they're not racing teammates. Of course, they're Ford teammates, but they're not racing teammates at the moment as they run nose to tail. But a unique opportunity for each of those competitors as they get set to duel it out here on the Cup Series All-Star Race Sunday night for $1 million. That'll be a sight to see. Hall's run to the front is not done. He's finally to the inside of McCumbee. Again, this for 7th spot at the end of the back straightaway, and he's got the pass made.
That he does. Hall continuing his charge to the front. And looking at the running order, you have all 6 of our kind of Cup Series competitors. I know Dale Earnhardt Jr. not active in the Cup Series right now, but you have 6 of those drivers encompassed in 7 positions. Chase Briscoe running in the 12th spot, back to Ross Chastain in 18th. The only one between them is Brandon Pierce right now. So pretty much all of the coveted Cup Series talent coming into the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour pretty much packed right behind Chase Briscoe in 12th.
You saw him moving up in the 5th spot by virtue of a little contact was Lane Riggs getting around your points leader Carson Quapple, who returns the favor by touching the left rear bumper of Riggs' car off of turn number 2. Hard to believe this could be the first time that we see Carson Quapple finish out of the front 2 spots this season. As a matter of fact, I think one of the other interesting stats is the fact that he's never finished 6th through 9th, or check that 6th through 10th in a running order. All of his top 10s have been top 5s. That streak is in jeopardy with Quapple running in the 6th spot, and I'll credit my buddy Blake McCandless for pointing that out to us before we started the year.
It's been an incredible stat, and of course with all of his spectacular runs has continued to maintain it, and perhaps may be in jeopardy here tonight. And he may lose one more spot to Connor Hall down to the inside, and Quapple and Hall nearly side by side into 3 and 4, but Connor Hall has a lot of race car right now, and he is using it to get as far forward as he can.
I think the one thing that Hall may be hoping for is a Volt battery caution flag in order for him to be able to erase the deficit that Brendan Queen has built out up front. We talked about how breathtaking the differential was between first and second in qualifying. Queen is out to a 2+ second lead as Connor Hall nudges his way to the inside of Carson Quapple. We've seen this before.
And Brandon Willard is displaying the black flag for somebody. And I want to see who it is. I saw he was waving it this last time by. We'll try to get a word on who exactly may be penalized here, but not often do we see the black flag displayed. But Brandon Willard in the flag stand was giving it to somebody.
We'll try to check on the identification of the car in question. All the while, Connor Hall has gotten by Carson Quapple for that position. Here's Kevin Harvick and Ronnie Bassett Jr. with Suarez and Keselowski, and Fender rubbing behind them between McCarty and Pierce.
It was Josh Dickens, car number 20, that received the black flag, and he has made his way down to the pit area.
Boy, Bobby McCarty was one of the 3 that we mentioned that was on that alternative strategy that stopped with about 65 laps complete, and that is not panning out the way in which he would have hoped for. He's all the way back in 18th.
Oh, Keselowski into the back of Suarez there off of turn 2. As Mason Diaz, what a march that Mason Diaz has had. Again, was put to the tail end of the lead lap, and he is hard charging behind these 2 NASCAR Cup Series stars. A Cup Series champion on the inside and former Xfinity Series champion on the outside, and Keselowski able to make his way by.
We're starting to see all of these cars slip and slide their way around this 5/8 mile oval, as it appears as though the good is not completely off of all 4 Hoosier tires. The question is, will anybody overstep that boundary and erase the lead that Brendan Queen has been able to build up here en route to what could be the biggest win of his young racing life? Diaz inside of Suarez, Jr. inside of Pierce.
See the battling on the right-hand side of your screen as contact with Diaz and Daniel Suarez. They continue to beat and bang down into turn number 1. But on the left-hand side, you can see Brendan Queen. And in the shot, you cannot see second place. Ryan Millington is back by nearly 2.7 seconds from Brendan Queen. And despite the fact that Queen had to get around lap traffic, he didn't really lose any time on his race lead, as they almost come to blows off of turn 4 with Brandon Pierce and Dale Earnhardt Jr.
You have to wonder what could have been for Dale Jr. and company if he did not sustain major nose damage, which they did a great job fixing on one of those controlled cautions. Nevertheless, though, that may have taken him out of contention to be running closer up towards the front in this one as he continues his battle with Brandon Pierce for 16th spot as they bounce off each other, and Connor Jones has entered the frame.
Remember, these 2 were beating and banging a little bit earlier, but Jones seems to have saved his tires as he maybe looks to the inside of Dale Earnhardt Jr. 4 laps to go, though, for Brendan Butterbean. Queen has 1 Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour win to his name. And, well, if you follow Brendan Queen, it should be no surprise that it came at Langley Speedway, looking for his 2nd career victory here in this series. And again, I did the math for Brendan Queen. I know he loves him some Waffle House. Jonesville is the closest Waffle House. I did the math for him, 16 miles away. So if you wonder if a Waffle House is getting burned down a little bit later tonight, that may be the location for Brendan Queen, as he'll come around and take 2 laps to go.
the driver for Lee Pulliam Performance, who picked up a win in the South Carolina 400. Not a Cars Tour sanctioned late model stock car event at the Florence Motor Speedway, but certainly one of the biggest deals in that part of the country. But now coming in the Cars Tour competition with a chance to win on one of the biggest stages we visit, off of turn number 4, Brendan Queen to the white flag.
White flag of the air, one more trip around North Wilkesboro Speedway for Brendan Queen. Sports a nearly 4-second lead over Ryan Millington in what perhaps will be the biggest win of his young racing career. Found success in dirt and on asphalt, and tonight he's a North Wilkesboro winner. Brendan Queen wins the Window World 125.
Several cars sliding their way to the checkered flag. Final margin of victory, 4.7 seconds over Ryan Millington, who had a fantastic comeback from the carnage on the front stretch 30 laps in. Jared Fryer, your podium. Connor Hall, Caden Honeycutt, your top 5. But one of the most unique personalities in full-fender late-model stock car racing is going to be having quite the party in front of the North Wilkesboro Speedway crowd as the fireworks are going off, and Brendan Queen, with the American flag waiting for him at the start-finish line, is going to be lighting up the front stretch here in front of this capacity crowd.
That he is. The celebration that you would often see, or probably many of these fans are familiar with, out of Brad Keselowski, but Brendan Queen will take up that mantle as he wins for the second time in his Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour career. Does it from the pole position, and I cannot wait to see the celebration out of this young man. One of the great personalities that we have here in this series, just has a tremendous attitude. I was talking to one of his crew guys crossing the gate a little bit earlier yesterday, and he was just raving about the attitude that this young man has, his approach, and he just has such a fun, loving nature about him and makes him a fan favorite. I mean, when we were in driver intros, Brendan Queen got one of the loudest ovations amongst the 37 competitors that we had, and I just can't wait to see his celebration.
Of course, the paint scheme is synonymous with that car as the Musco Lighting starts to put on a bit of a show here as well with Brendan Queen. This is something that this young man surely will never forget. Best Repair Company came on board, the Chesapeake, Virginia native. He got an opportunity to pair up with Lee Pulliam Performance. Didn't take long for them to find success. I remember running into him with you on Media Day, Blake, and he was just so ecstatic to be a Touring 12 driver, to have the opportunity ahead of him, and it appeared as though the pressure that may come with being one of the drivers who could be the face of the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour didn't seem to faze him, and I'm not quite sure he was at a point where he totally understood that that objective may be coming to fruition with the successes that he's had in this race car. He came into the night second in points. Carson Quapple comes home 8th. He's going to gain ground there, and this may be where the momentum starts to shift in this portion of the late model stock car season, but right now it's about winning at North Wilkesboro Speedway, and he's done it.
I can't imagine that this feels like anything, but I mean, this has to feel like a dream. The lights are going off, fireworks are going off, and he gets to ride the elevator at North Wilkesboro Speedway. There you see his crew chief and Doug Powers as they embrace, and we'll get that trip to get some of those fans out of the way and clear his spot, because guess what? He's going to go ride the elevator. An incredible race here, and again, so many fans in Virginia are very happy for this Chesapeake native, and leans on his experience and how successful he has been over the years at Langley, at a racetrack that I think would have prepared him very well to have a lot of success in North Wilkesboro Speedway. I believe that's Minnie Tyrell that's giving him some congratulations as well. Was out of the race a little bit earlier, but my goodness, I'm just so happy for this young man and what his future in this series looks like. I mean, this is one of the toughest races to win, again, against all of these NASCAR Cup Series competitors. This has to rank up there, and I think will for a very long time for Brendan Queen.
And how about the way in which he got the job done? We mentioned Wax the Field at Hedgecock Racing pole qualifying earlier today, and the margin of victory nearly 5 seconds at the finish in what was only about a 30-35 lap run to the checkers. So It's one thing in order to check the box as being a pole winner and race winner, but the method in which Brendan Queen and that team and that organization went about doing it tonight at a track that everyone says is one of the toughest on the calendar, let alone one of the most prestigious, I think that is a massive statement for the late model stock pit area and something we're going to be keeping tabs of when we get to Tri-County on Memorial Day weekend.
Absolutely. And, you know, this is a bit of a redemption story for Brendan Queen as well. You mentioned that he had such a great shot of winning this race last year before those hood issues relegated him back to 26th. So for him to come back to this racetrack and not just do it, but do it in dominating fashion. As soon as they unloaded off the trailer, he was very happy with his lead podium performance, Toyota. And there it is. There's the elevator ride. And, boy, they are packed in on that elevator as well. Everybody on the crew wanted to get in on this one.
This is a good test run, if you will, for what we're going to see here over the course of the next few days, especially with the Cup Series coming down here with a $1 billion celebration. And I got to tell you, I know that everybody and every driver who gets to capture top honors in a contest or a race that they're a part of, they're probably itching to get out of the car, celebrate with their team and everyone who made it possible. But I hope that Brendan and everybody who is standing on that elevator right now is taking the opportunity to soak in each second of this moment as the fireworks show off in turn number 2 continues to take place.
I was about to say what looks like a fair or carnival atmosphere with some of the food vendors that are outside of turn 2. We got the fireworks going both outside of turn 2 and turn 4. The fans are treated to one heck of a show. And by the way, racing continues on Flow Racing tonight. This isn't the last one on the docket. This ASA Stars National Tour. Super late models, they of course have their race to look forward to as well. That was rained out last night, but you have more racing on the docket. 150 laps around this racetrack for those drivers, and boy, it is packed in Edelbrock Victory Lane. But I can't imagine that the celebration is going to end. And well, the last time he won a race, he took the trophy to Waffle House. Wonder if I wonder what the Waffle House workers will think, bringing that trophy with the specific design with the moonshine and everything, what they'll think about it.
You can see that team making sure that they're in the right position to roll that car off there. As Blake mentioned, Ralph Shaheen, Jim Trado waiting in the wings to step in to call the action of the ASA Stars National Tour. It's an art in order to get the lift exactly where you need it, in order to roll the car off cleanly and to keep it in race-winning condition. And they're making sure that they are just in the right spot in order to roll that thing into Edelbrock Victory Lane. And once things wrap up here from North Wilkesboro Speedway, we are on to Tri-County. $30,000 to win. And if you thought we were done with some of the star power and familiar names, Kenny Wallace will be in the field, adding on to his Memorial Day duties. He will be at the Charlotte Motor Speedway for the NASCAR race day coverage. He will be strapping into an RNS race car's leaf filter entry to try to go home back to St. Louis, Missouri with $30,000 extra in the pocket.
As the fireworks continue to go off, we'll go through some of the finishing order here. Ryan Millington in second. It was Jared Fryer who rounded out your podium in third. Connor Hall rebounded up to a fourth place finish. Caden Honeycutt rounded out your top 5. Lane Riggs, who led a majority of this race, definitely has the most laps led award here tonight, finishes in that 6th position. Chad McCumbee 7th. Carson Quapple first finish outside the top 5 when he's finished in the top 10 in the 8th position. Zach Miracle 9th. And the best of your Cup Series competitors tonight was Chase Briscoe in 10th, Kevin Harvick 11th, 12th was Brad Keselowski, 13th Mason Diaz, Ronnie Bassett Jr. was 14th, Daniel Suarez 15th, Dale Earnhardt Jr. 16th, Connor Jones 17th, Brandon Pierce was 18th, Ross Chastain 19th, and Cameron Bolin rounded out your top 20. Again, 37 cars competed here tonight. 21st was Landon Huffman, 22nd was Carson Brown. Tate Fogelman finished in 23rd with Tyler Ankrum in 24th. Jason Kitzmiller was 25th. Dylan Wilson 26th. Brian Barnhill was 27th. 28th was Bobby McCarty. Josh Dickens was 29th. 30th, Jacob Hefner. 31st, involved in this incident as well as all the others that we will continue to list off in that lap 30 incident. William Sawalich in 31st. Minnie Tyrell 32nd. Chase Burrow was 33rd, Landon Pimpleton 34th, Deke McCaskill 35th, Connor Zilish 36th, and Andrew Grady finished in 37th tonight. as Brendan Butterbean Queen has the American flag hanging out the left side of that car, and I cannot imagine that we're going to see a happier person in Wilkes County or the state of North Carolina tonight, as Brendan Butterbean Queen is your winner tonight. Let's catch up with him in Edelbrock Victory Lane.
We're up here in Victory Lane. Brennan Butterbean Queen has just arrived. And race fans, put your hands together for the Window World 125 winner! American flag in hand, fireworks going. Lee Poyam's going to walk up and congratulate him. What a moment for driver and team owner, car owner. Brennan, you did it. Track record, pole award, now in Victory Lane. You have accomplished a marquee late model win just in under 6 months ago, and now you're here at North Wilkesboro. I see your eyes watering up right now, but has it even sank in yet that you've won here?
This is nuts. I said all week to my guys we were going to ride the lift, and damn if we didn't. Only thing we need up here is some Waffle House, and we'd be having a real good time. But we're getting there. We'll be at the Waffle House at some point tonight. Man, I tell you, I started driving for Lee, and you know, with my family team, I was starting to win a lot of races and putting things together, and then you know, I come over to Lee to do what I wanted to do, go on the tour, and we've won a bunch of races already, and we wanted a Cars Tour win. We let one get away in Florence, and we got one tonight. This has got to be the coolest win of my career. I got to thank BestRepair.net, Hunter Staten, John Staten, Lori Staten for believing in me and making this opportunity come true. LeadCars.com, Mincy's Graphics, Old School. I got to thank the Lord for blessing us. David West, John West Engines tonight. LPP, this whole team, all my guys, and Doug Powers, our crew chief tonight, getting his first win. And Paul, where's he at, Dougie? Oh, he did it. I'm just blessed. You know, thanks to North Wilkesboro for letting us come, the Cars Tour for letting us be here. My girlfriend Nicole for everything she does. Happy birthday to my mom. Great birthday present tonight at midnight. Just everybody that's believed in me. It's just crazy to see my name getting on the map now, winning races, and that's why I came here, is to win races. So check that box. We're winners at Wilkesboro.
What a box to check. That's a good one to get off your list. Let's talk about your strategy really quick, because you did fall back a little bit during the race, but then you were able to capitalize. You did a little bit of tire switcheroo there, getting the new ones on the right side. And at the end, you had a 4-second lead here at Wilkesboro. Did everything just play out perfect? Were they in your ear saying, calm down, you're leading too much now?
Yes, they were trying to get me to slow down. I was trying. One big thing is this bad boy right here, the hood, stayed on this year. So that's a plus. Redemption from last year. We had such a good run in my family car. To come back with Lee and get it done, it's bittersweet. The strategy, I was a little nervous because all them guys staying out and, you know, losing track position. But when we fired off, this thing was such a rocket. I could go where I wanted to whenever. And I know my crew chief didn't really want me to take the top on that restart. And I was like, man, if I get clean air, I think it's over. So the good Lord blessed us, and it worked out. Like I said, LPP, baby, back on the victory lane. Woo!
Brennan Butterbean Queen going to win the Window World 125, and he's going to apply that winner sticker. It's been a tradition here at the Cars Tour for many years. You apply it to the B post, as he's going to also receive congratulations from Caden Honeycutt, who he's raced with for many years. And right beside me here, we have the coolest trophy, the Call Racing Distillery's Copper Trophy. And there's also etched in North Wilkesboro Speedway logo and checkered flag and car on a wood piece that it sits on. So we'll have the trophy presentation here in just a moment from the Window World CEO, Tammy Whitworth, as Brennan will also receive congratulations from Jack McNelly and all his crew members. and a champagne toss. Brennan. We're going to get you a trophy that you're going to want to have for many years. Everyone gathers around from Window World 125. Man, guys, what a scene it is down here.
And there's all the Window World folks there in Edelbrock Victory Lane. How many times did you and I look at each other and just smile and giggle at that interview? Oh, my goodness. Again, that's why these folks here, these fans in the grandstands, they love Brendan Butterbean Queen.
A star has been in the making. I would say that a star wasn't necessarily born tonight, but perhaps solidified in Brendan Butterbean Queen. Many eyes were on this race all throughout the evening. You can tell by the energy behind him. And as you can see, we're not done yet. Blake, this may be it for you and I. We're going to turn the tides over to Ralph Sheen and Jim Trado. Had a blast with you tonight. Happy early birthday, my friend. We're only a couple hours away, so happy birthday and enjoy it. And thanks to our production crew, everyone here, incredible, especially here at Wilkesboro.
Well, and their night does not end tonight, but again, the ASA National Stars Tour, you can see them making their way out onto the racetrack. And again, for many of these race fans that are continuing to stick around in the grandstands, you can see many of them starting to walk up to the catch fencing here to get a good look at all of these race cars, as we will
Yeah, hard to believe that there is one extra race still to go here after this event was pushed off from last night. And the field is already lining up on the main straightaway, and we will be inching closer to the start of this event for the ASA Stars National Tour. And as we mentioned, Ralph Sheen, Jim Trado had a chance to listen to them earlier on today. They do a fantastic job, and I'm looking forward to having a chance to listen to more of that. Before we do that, let's touch base with Jacqueline Drake once more.
Finishing on the podium then tonight, the number 15 of Ryan Millington, bringing it home in second place. The whole left side of your car was pancaked. It was a battlefield out there for you this evening. How did you survive and end up second place?
Yeah, I mean, I knew we had a really good car all night. We qualified like 24th or so. I was pretty disappointed, but I knew we had a good long run speed. So, we were just kind of focusing on that. There at the beginning, I kind of had run harder than I wanted to try to get some track position, and ended up having a wreck there at some point, I don't know, lap 40 or so, and it just, tore the whole left side off the car, and it forced us to take tires a little earlier than we would have liked to, but at the same time, it gave us track position. So either way, awesome night for us. I can't thank my dad, Bob Seville, Brandon Graham, everybody that just helped tonight. It was huge for us. So to come here and finish second, that's big. That's big. So we'll keep working, and we got 30,000 to chase next weekend. So that's the goal.
Hard-fought second place finisher tonight, Ryan Millington.
Millington gets the job done, and Eric, I know we kind of opened our broadcast when we first saw the Leisure Time Rentals Chevrolet down there, that he and his family-operated team have been one of the great stories in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour this season. But we're going to toss it back down to Jacqueline Drake, who's caught up with your third-place runner in Jared Fryer.
Jared Fryer finishing third this evening. You almost got the lead in those final few laps without Brennan running away. What more did you need?
I just needed our car to be a little better balanced. It went through such big swings there. We put fuel in, we put new tires on it, with mixed with old tires. So that and probably clean air. I know I hate to say that, but every time I'd get tucked up behind them and get a good run through the corner, I'd get so close, it just gets so tight. I couldn't come off the bottom and get off the corner like I needed to. But just can't thank everybody that had a hand in getting us here and racing, and this facility looks awesome. So everybody had a hand and all the hard work that went into this place. Can't thank them enough, and of course everybody on the race car makes it happen and possible for me. My dad, Jimmy Bourne, Moist Paint, Eatman Mobile Home Movers, AK Performance, my spotter Tony, everybody that has a hand and means a lot. It takes a crew to do this and run this good. Anytime you come out here and run with these guys and run that good is awesome. So it's a good feeling. Had a lot of fun tonight, and it's always cool to race on that kind of stage with them people, and hopefully put on a good show for the people back at home and in the stands.
Great showing and great speed for you this evening. Jared Fryer is going to bring it home in third place.
Great effort for Jared Fryer, and I love that